Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. We're a 40K podcast. We like to talk about 40K. I'm your host, Mark. We got Christian joining me.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, man, so good.
It's a little
We also
disappointed
got
that
James.
That's right. Straight from the great hive mind, it is Gene Stealer Jim. I'm stealing your jeans.
So now I'm stuck with you two again for the next 2 hours.
That's right.
Excellent.
hopefully longer.
Now, people always ask me, why did I start Lorehammer? And I always said, well, I like trapping people in a room and telling them about 40K stuff. So buckle in.
It is easier when people can't leave. I've noticed that.
Yeah, before I left Canada, I did have like specialized locks installed on all your guys' houses. You know, I learned this technique from locking Jordan in the basement many, many years ago. But yeah, we're excited to talk the Webway tonight. We're going to get lost in it together. Just go down this labyrinth corridor, lift up this low stone, see what we find. It's going to be pretty interesting. I learned one huge thing about this episode at the very end. I call it trivia time. And I learned it like today. So I'm super excited to talk about that. But Webway,
do we win any money?
You know,
you never win anything. You only lose. That's the 40K.
No,
You only lose time.
Yeah. You know, somehow if you like perform spectacularly, maybe this won't be your last episode. But I just don't see that happening, you know.
Not after the contracts are signed.
No, sir.
What is that corn demon doing in the corner?
That's Julio.
That's Julio.
You should make sure you don't negate. What is it? Yeah, geez.
That's a word.
So we got some quick housekeeping here. Our sweet boy, Gene Stealer James, he built us a website. It's pretty cool. We're still working on it, kind of figuring out what we want to do with it. But what we want to do with it is like sell merchandise. But we're still working on it. It's a work in progress. I know on the last episode, we were trying to sell some dice, and we just, you know, I was going through a provider and then it didn't work out in the end. And all of a sudden it was like, I can't charge people that much money. That's absurd. So I have to find a new provider. So now maybe before I go into this dice, I'm going to say this real quick. If anyone out there is like an experienced merchandise salesman or manager, like if you've ever run podcast merchandise or anything like that, and you want to get involved on the Lorehammer team, we're looking for somebody to definitely run that, who can hunt down how to find the best dice, how to ship them all out, do all that kind of stuff. You know, we have a lot of ideas. Like we want to do that magic card, you know, and that's coming along pretty well. I've seen a bunch of artwork. So if you have any experience kind of in that area, definitely reach out. This is a paid position somewhat. Like, you know, if we sell merchandise, there's a cut in how much merchandise we sell. So I'm looking for somebody who is actually worth that. So if you're just a guy on the Discord and you're 18, like you're not the dude for me. But if you're looking for a little part-time hobby income, definitely reach out. Let's go back to dice real quick. What we're currently doing with these dice is we're just taking orders. We currently just want your address. We're not asking for any money. We just want your address. And then that way, when we find companies, we can figure out shipping and, you know, make it a little easier. We're going to be taking orders for the next month, and then hopefully we have enough to make one order. So definitely email, go on the podcast or on the website and try to place an order there. You know, reach out any way you can if you're interested in getting dice, and we'll put you on that kind of wait list.
Well, as is the Lorehammer way, Mark hasn't told me any of this yet, so I will have to change the website to not take money from you for making a purchase. So I'll change that after this.
Yeah, and if you have, we'll give money back. But yeah, no, unfortunately, the one provider we were going to go through, it just didn't quite work out. And we're like, okay, no, that's not good. So hold on. We're trying to make this feasible and possible. I think if we get like that merchandise manager kind of guy, like I think we can do some magical stuff together as a community. That's the goal.
Just make magic together.
Yeah, exactly.
Make the magic happen.
So like I said, reach out. You pretty much have 1 month and we're going to be taking orders for the dice. You don't have to put down money. I just want to know where you live. Okay.
Just tell Mark exactly where you live and what time you're not home.
Exactly.
And preferably within driving distance. I don't want to drive far.
Yeah.
And if you want,
so that's
throw in your social security number too. Just for me.
You know the drill. You know the important stuff. So that's kind of that piece of the puzzle. Discord event. We did that Magic the Gathering thing. Go check that out. We have Gothic Garnish working on the artwork, and it's 10 out of 10. Look at that coming up on the screen. It's incredible. It really is. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so the thing is, like, yes, it's AI art, and if that gets you butthurt about it, I'm sorry, but like also there's an element of like this is being modified as well. It's not just straight AI art. Like there is an element of artistic change to it that we're putting through, and that's part of the process. So
yeah,
it's not just it.
Master. Yeah. Like he upscales, he removes stuff, he photoshops in Aquila's, like he's a master. I just know because I tried doing the AR art and it was laughable.
Hey,
maybe that's a good
segue. Is a job, eh?
Yeah, man. Maybe that's a good segue into this link I included here. We do Instagram live posts and Facebook posts daily. And we released a classic one today of the Men in Gold. And, you know, it says a nice little blurb about what the Men in Gold are and has a cool picture. And as you look closer, you're like, wait.
I know that guy.
Is that Iron Man? And you know, this is almost one of those fucking mantis shrimp moments where I've never seen so much hatred in my life and vitriol.
Mark, so Christian assures me it was supposed to be a joke.
It was a joke. Men of Iron, Iron Man, and then it was a Men of Gold.
We intentionally did this.
We never make mistakes. It's always on purpose.
Yeah, I won't read names, but I will read comments. I would rather have just looked at a full-on text of black background than this AI-generated picture. I mean, did you not feel any hesitation to post this goofy-looking gold-dripped Iron Man? The next one is the Robert Downey Jr. meme of him taking off the Dr. Doom mask.
That's perfect.
We all know about the Emperor's right-hand man, Tony Stark.
I mean, the sigillite is kind of Tony Starky, so
yeah. I'll read a couple more of these. My brother in Christ, that is Iron Man. Looks more like Iron Man to me. It's really disappointing to use the AI art for this, especially for the tarot cards. What happened into letting real artists demonstrate their skill instead of fake ones relying on the computer? Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Middleton art. That's why I got Gothic Garnish on the job, because yeah, me and Christian are goobers with our AI Iron Man art, but that guy's a fucking artist.
Also, if you're volunteering to submit 100 and something pieces of artwork for free, by all means.
It is difficult to come up with art, because you don't also want to rip off someone else's work too, right? Like there's a balance there.
Well, maybe we shouldn't be too cheap to get a real artist commission, as this guy suggests. Or yeah, so anyways, man, there's a bunch of comments. Go check out our Instagram. It's pretty funny. That one particularly, I've never seen such hatred since the Mantis Shrimp times.
It was a joke.
Maybe we could switch it to Christian complaints.
Yeah, we need a new email. Jeez Louise.
All your art related problems.
Jeez. All right, we got a couple more housekeeping things. Live streaming. What do we got?
Yeah, every other Friday at 8:30. What time is that? I don't use whatever it is. So
Central
Standard. Okay, and I think our next one is on the 23rd. So just wait for if you're on the Patreon, wait for the link and come join us live, and we'll all join each other. You can comment, you can harass.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
I mean, that's what it's for, right? That's what chat's for, is for harassing people. So
yeah, you know, there's a guy out there right now saying merch hammer, which, you know, that's TM branded soon.
Better do it quick before he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so come join us, and we love chatting with you. It's a lot of fun, and then some people get to jump in at the end of the episode. You can be a part of it. It's lots of fun chatting with you guys live. So I hope you join in.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Patreon. Christian, do you have a sweet thing? I told you to put all your heart and soul into this sales pitch, and you said you had something
literally
so
30 seconds before we started.
Wallets open.
We're poor and we need your help. We need your help to keep this ship afloat.
Honesty.
It's the best policy. Yeah.
I've never tried that one before. That's an interesting one.
Yeah,
we'll see if it takes.
Yeah. we really want to keep the show going, and Patreon is the way to do it. So help us out, support the show. I need to justify all the time and energy that I'm putting into this to my wife, who's threatened to leave me and take the kids. So
The other thing too is like
she's just doing that to Panama, man. Like we're saying relocate to Panama.
We're also like using it to buy better audio equipment and better like camera, so we can like make the podcast better. So
yeah, and buy codexes for sure too, so we can get the first-hand knowledge. And hey, you know what? We might be able to make enough to hire an artist.
There you go. You know what though? Like on like I don't want to get too political, but like we've been shadow banned this week. Apparently our last episode about Tyranids and orcs, apparently that had something to do with some type of war that is currently going on. Apparently I'm going to get shadow banned again if I say any more. And people are saying they couldn't pull up our show. And also I got messages from YouTube that we were demonetized and stuff like that. So seriously, like if you like shows like this, it's not about the money, but also, you know, we only have so much time. So please consider joining the Patreon, and you get to come join the chat room, because the shadow bans are real, man. And like like I said, we're not even saying anything crazy. Like,
yeah, that's wild. That like, if you can't even talk about war in Warhammer, what are you gonna do?
what are we gonna do in that case? You know. So seriously, I know we have the audience size that like,
even $1, man.
You know, even $1, man.
Even if half of our audience gave us $1, that would be plenty.
Yeah. So. Well, let's get into the episode. You know, we're known for those long intros, so that was 12 minutes. Enjoy that. The Webway.
Time stamp. Skip ahead.
Yeah. Oh man, the Webway, the veil between worlds. Beyond the veil of reality, hidden from mortal sight, lies the Webway, a place, twisted labyrinth of forgotten passageways and shattered dreams. It is a place where the lines between life and death blur, where the lost empires of the empires past cling to their fading glory. Today, we journey into the shadowy expanse where ancient horrors lurk, and the boundaries of sanity are tested with every turn. I got a question for you boys. If you had one sentence, what's kind of something you know and like, or know and dislike about the Webway?
If I were to like say what I know about the Webway in the simplest terms, it's intergalactic transportation without the demons.
Which is saying a lot.
That's nice. What it is.
That's higher than first class and coach for sure.
Yeah. Without the demons. Good selling point.
That. Okay.
Should start an airline company.
Yeah.
We fly you without the demons.
We'll call it Webway.
Webway. Yeah.
Webway Airlines. My brother is an aircraft mechanic, so we already got a better mechanic than most of the airlines nowadays. I think we're onto something. This is what I'm talking about. We need a Lorehammer merch guy. We need our own
we need
airline.
to start sell airplanes.
Christian, do you have like a thought about it or a dislike or anything?
No, I think it's a really interesting plot hook. It's a cool like way around the problem of the warp, and the fact that it is such a central not item or thing, but like a central, I don't know, plot device that affects like even like the Emperor's great work and everything. Like it is super important to the functioning of the galaxy.
Yeah, and like every race basically battles the warp in their own way, whether it's the Imperium battling like Chaos Space Marines and demons of their own making, you know, or however, you know, just warp storms that they're trying to avoid, just however everyone's battling the warp.
Yeah, so it's a good way around it.
The chat slide.
I like to think of Gollum. It's when he talks about Shelob's tunnel. The tunnel. That's the Webway.
Twisted labyrinth. The chat's lighting up saying the Webway is an ocean, and that is not true. Clearly, that's
more
not
like a
how
spider
it
web.
works. Yeah, no, it's more like a tunnel. But we'll get to that. Okay, the overview. Let's see what it's all about. The Webway, also called the Labyrinth Dimension, is an extra-dimensional space carved from the Immaterium millions of Terran years ago by the enigmatic Old Ones. My Google.
Their voices.
My Google just picked up my Google Home or whatever, so sorry about that.
You know what, Mark? You can sneak out and just put the Google up to the mic.
Yeah.
Just
Just record it. Hey
Well,
Google, how do I do
they
this?
notice.
What is the Webway?
Oh man. Today, the Eldari Asariani, the craft worlders, and their sinister Drukhari kin use the Webway for faster than light travel. Navigating its arcane passages was ancient expertise. Within its shadowy confines lies the dark city of Cormora, a vast and malevolent metropolis, and the hidden craft world known as the Black Library, guarded by the elusive Harlequins. As the Assyriani warhorse host can emerge onto a new world through the Webway, stepping from its secret paths to strike with lethal precision. The Webway is an intricate network of arteries and capillaries, a labyrinth of glowing tunnels, and a mystical tapestry of the hidden threads that weave through the veil between real space and the warp. This hyperdimensional construct spans the realms of creation, existing in the liminal space between the material world and the churning chaos of the warp, like a shroud over a festering wound. Forged by psychic means, the Webway is one of the Eldari's most treasured artifacts, its corridors shielded by eldritch methods from the predations of the warp. Man, when I type this, I can do it, and then I read it. It's like, do I even know that word? The substance of the Webway's myriad passages is fortified against the warp incursions, a testament to the arcane mastery of its creators. So I've kind of always looked at the Webway as, many people have heard the warp is an ocean analogy. And then you got the Astronomicon as the lighthouse in the ocean that guides the ships to safety. And when there's warp storms, they toss the ships and they get lost at sea and all that kind of stuff. The way the Webway I've always kind of pictured is, what is that underwater tunnel from England to France? The channel?
The channel.
Yes, sir. The channel. That's kind of how I picture it, where it's in the water, but it's not of the water. It's safe from the tides and the crashing above, and it's this way to quickly navigate back and forth.
Yeah.
You're in the warp, but not affected by it.
And on that note too, though, that tunnel can be breached and water can spill in, or like sections of the tunnel can collapse, or so it's not, even though it's like protection from it, it's not invulnerable to it. So yeah. Did they ever finish that channel, by the way?
Yeah, dude.
Is it
like
done?
a long time ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I just remember seeing updates about it all the time as they were digging.
Pop quiz, Christian. What year are we in right now?
1911.
Oh God. Okay.
Interesting. Next few years are going to be very exciting for you.
Very exciting.
Don't give me any spoilers. All right. On that note, history. The Webway was forged by the Old Ones, an ancient and technologically advanced species who ruled an interstellar empire across the Milky Way galaxy, tens of millions of years before the rise of most other sentient beings. This arcane conduit allowed the Old Ones to travel to countless distant worlds without risking the treacherous tides of the warp. The ancient Eldari, taught by the Old Ones, quickly mastered the labyrinth dimension, expanding their realms into the furthest corners of reality and uncovering knowledge long since forgotten. Over the millennia, the Eldari began to turn inward, seeking new ways to explore the full range of their potent emotions and sensations. A sickness of vice consumed the Eldari, with blood flowing through the streets amidst the bestial roars of the crowd. Their hidden realm within the Webway became sprawling palaces of avarice and sadism, entire worlds dedicated to the darkest of sensations. As the Eldari's moral corruption deepened, echoes of their ecstasy and agony rippled through time and space. In the parallel dimension of the warp, these intense experiences began to coalesce as the shifting psychic tides of the Imperial can take form around emotions of large masses of sentient beings. Slowly, silently, a nascent god of excess grew strong in the depths of the warp. Within the warp, thoughts and emotions flow together, achieving a form of consciousness depending on the intensity of their origin. Amidst the swirling psychic energy of the Imperial, the corruption of the decadent Eldari became manifest on a horrifying scale as raw emotions coalesced into a gestalt consciousness. Slowly, the great enemy stirred towards wakefulness. Too late, the Eldari realized they had created a god in their own hideous image, a god immense and potent, feeding on the dark essence of the Eldari spirit. No creature as terrible or perverse as the chaos god Slanesh had ever been conceived. The Eldari dared not speak its name, whispering instead, oh man, you put actual Eldari in here, Sayalanthresh, meaning she who thirsts. In a heartbeat, the Eldari civilization, which had endured for aeons, had its heart ripped out, leaving a pulsing afterbirth of pure chaos in its place. Since the fall of the Eldari in the late 29th and early 30th millennia of the Imperial calendar, the Webway has become a shattered and dangerous realm, infested by strange beings from different realities. Yet, the Webway's portals still allow the brave and the bold to strike without warning at countless locations throughout the real space. Millions of years ago, the ancient Eldari discovered the means to traverse the threads of the veil between real space and the warp. They mastered the original Webway network, though it has been drastically altered by war and disaster since the height of their empire. Moving between dimensions is fraught with danger, but the skill and intellect of the Eldari enable them to utilize the Webway without hesitation. The Azuriani craft world drift in deep space at sublight speeds, their exact locations unknown to other intelligent races. The craft world Eldari do not consider their physical positions important, viewing them as minor details in an eternal journey. Smaller Eldari spacecraft, moored at the craft world's fringes, travel between craft worlds via the Webway. The main gateways into the Webway are swirling spheres of light and darkness, held in stasis astern each craft world.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things I just recall in the book Fulgrim in the Horus Heresy, where like Fulgrim is going down to the planet to meet with an Eldar Farseer, and just like his first experience with it, the surprising nature that like they can get to this planet without ships. They can get there basically seemingly instantaneously from their ship, and that just the amount of advantage that gives them. Also, like you don't need to like, it's not like when you're traveling through the warp where you need a big ship, you need your Geller fields, you need all this equipment to get somewhere. You can just basically walk through it on foot and end up in the other place, which is like just such a huge advantage.
Yeah, that's like everything from personal teleportation to like being able to summon a battle tank.
Yeah.
Out of thin air.
Yeah, exactly. And so like in that conflict, again, this book's been out for a while, so hopefully the spoilers aren't a big deal. But the Eldar are able to get out, or the Farsi is able to flee easily from this confrontation just through the Webway. And just like the way this thing works is just such a different form of transportation than basically anybody else has, because even like Necron traveling through the galaxy, they require big ships and all this equipment to get them places, but the Eldar can just pop up places.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like, yeah, they have small portals, or they have ones big enough for craft worlds. So like, yeah, like you said, literally it's whether it's a human or a craft world, like they can pop up anywhere.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, and so this was kind of just like the beginning intro of the story of how they utilize it to avoid Slaanesh and stuff. Really, they had this ultimate tool, and then they started getting crazy, and then Slaanesh was born, and now you really have to avoid chaos. Yeah, they broke everything, and
idiots.
Now they're just kind of lingering on to like this remnants where, yeah, now the channel has a bunch of holes in it. The old Webway. Ooh.
Yeah. You never want to put holes in your channel. That's like the number one rule.
No. No.
It is interesting to note too. Sorry, there was a lot of stuff I covered in a short amount of time there. It is interesting to note that the Webway wasn't even created by the Eldar. They're just using it. It's actually an old one's invention. So.
Yeah, and maybe we glossed over that because, that's maybe a very important detail of who are the old ones. We've talked about them on previous episodes, but they were
done one dedicated to the old ones. I can't remember. It's been a few episodes.
When we first started, we did like the whole intro to the universe, and we started with the War in Heaven, and we've definitely talked about it a bunch. But
never
just
dedicated.
Yeah, I don't know if there is enough on them. Is the thing. Maybe
that's where we should have started.
30 minutes. What?
Start again. Cancel everything. Let's start
again.
Scratch. 100
this
million.
This is why we don't do live streams. Yeah, but the old ones are like the first sentient species that they didn't even have to conquer the galaxy. They just inhabited it pretty much. Yeah. And they eventually reached the Necron and had this huge war in heaven, and they used the Webway back then as a means of safety and protection, and they'd also hide in there for eons. And like the war in heaven was a long time, like it was millions of years type thing, so they could exist in there kind of free of time and space. And the Necron, they didn't have a way of dealing with it, like of getting into it, so it's just like a little secret passageway, a little hidey hole.
Yeah, because, and I think, like, not to make it too much about Necron, but like it is a fundamentally like psychic and attached to the warp thing. And so since the Necron aren't necessarily as much of a psychic race, they didn't have that connection to the warp the way like Eldar do, or the old ones. So that is like a unique aspect to it. It's like not a physical thing. It doesn't seem to be like a physical dimension thing. It's like this psychic spiritual dimension, kind of like the warp is.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's a lot of like crystallized wraith bone, or like patch jobs of that. I had something, then it brain fart. Never mind. Carry on with your life.
The other quick thing I just wanted to bring up too before moving on is, like, again, we kind of glossed over like the whole fall of the Eldari, and like Komara is in the Webway, and how like they broke the Webway. They put a bunch of holes in it. Now there's demons spilling in different areas. There's other predatory creatures that are kind of alluded to that we don't know what their origin is. There's
Primarchs in there.
Allegedly.
The Black Library's in there. There's Eldar gods in there. Like Segarak is said to be in there. We do talk about Cormoran, the Black Library, a lot in this episode, so look forward to that.
And also a thing to note is how you can get lost in the Webway, especially if you're not used to or you don't know where you're going. Like, imagine going into a tunnel or a cave system with no reference points, no maps.
That spans the galaxy.
Yeah, like it's huge. Like we said, you could ship a whole craft world through it, right? Like you're gone, you're lost, you're not coming back.
One thing to note too about the Webway is how it's not the same reality as ours. So, up isn't always up in the Webway. Down isn't always down. There's these classic pictures of Cormorant where there's just spikes going every which way, and they're just spires of buildings. And you're like, what is the gravity in this place?
Yeah, none of it makes sense.
Like, yeah, exactly. Stuff like that doesn't necessarily apply, but it also might apply very much in this specific area of the Webway. So look out.
Yeah. Which goes back to like how it's broken. Like it's also unpredictable in its own way.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I thought was kind of interesting too was just how Eldar really don't care about their position in the galaxy, their physical position. And the combination of craft worlds and this ability to just teleport, it adds another thing I've never really considered. It's easy to fathom Eldar and how they don't care about time. I get that, even though I only have a short lifespan, but like the not caring about position, like right now we could be in the same room together and then I could be back in Panama,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Because you can walk through it. So it must just feel like, oh yeah, what does it matter where you are? You could just be there in a second. Like, what would it feel like if every room in the world was like going to your living room?
It feels cramped.
Yeah, so every door is like a Webway door. Every door that you open, and then you can either go into the rest of your house or just Christian's house.
Yeah, or you pop up in Antarctica, or pop up in India, or pop up in Russia.
Yeah,
who knows? Yeah, it's cool.
Quick question from the audience here. How does like travel compare as far as like time? Like how fast are you going?
So if you know how to navigate and you're using sound pass, because the Webway, like we're saying, it's that Webway. So, if you're going to bumfuck nowhere, there might not be a very stable Webway corridor there that's been like maintained and marked. So it might take longer, but it still is going to be faster and safer typically than warp travel. But if you're talking like main Webway portals from craft world to craft world, instantaneous, even if they're across the galaxy type thing, they know their route and,
Yeah, it's safe, it's stable. So yeah, exactly like you said, it's instant. It can go anywhere from instant to like being lost forever and anything in between.
Yeah, but typically, it's more stable than the warp and a lot faster
and safer generally. if you know where you're, again, it goes back to that there are like navigators and farseers who know how to navigate the path, right? They know, yeah, this is a safe path. The same if you're going to the forest, right? And you go with a guide who knows, oh yeah, this is a path. I go this way all the time. It's safe. Versus someone who's just like lost in the woods and like stumbles over a cliff or like, just completely lost.
Yeah. Another comment we had was, so the Webway is basically that hallway in the Matrix too. Which is funny because I literally watched that movie a couple nights ago. Christian can confirm that me and my wife were dabbling in it. So yeah, no, it's exactly like that. It's this back room where it's just a bunch of doors, but it's not a neat, orderly hallway like the Matrix. Unfortunately, there's doors everywhere. It's more like that picture of all the stairs in every direction.
Yeah, that painting. Yeah, like nothing makes sense. Like you could be walking up one set of stairs and then you're like upside down on another set of stairs.
Yeah, remember the Eldar have been doing this for like 60 million years. So
yeah.
All right. The Webway pathways lead to the craft worlds, the verdant worlds of the Exodites, the corrupt city of Cormorra, and countless other worlds across the galaxy. Cloistered within the hidden city realms of the Webway, those who survive the fall still revel on the debauchery that led to their downfall. In that twilight realm, between material universe and the warp, the Drukhari mock and jeer at those ravaged by the fall of their species. Despite their bravado, the Drukhari know that unless something beyond their imagination occurs, Slaanesh will ultimately claim them. Though the Webway still connects many Eldari worlds and craft worlds, the baleful energies of the fall have shattered its hyperspatial pathways in countless places. Amongst the Webway's treacherous tendrils, many byways, dead ends, and mazes can entrap the unwary, leading to abandoned or destroyed realms, or those now infested by demons of the warp. These perilous doors are sealed with runes of psychic power to prevent unknown horrors from gaining access to a craft world, or unwary travelers from being sucked into the warp. It is claimed that many secret paths lead through time and reality, known only to the elegant and deadly harlequins. Within the furthest reaches of the Webway lie mighty Drukhari port cities and nests of the wasp-like warp entities known as the Psychonin. The best hidden secret of the Webway is the elusive craft world called the Black Library. The exact shape and form the Webway remains mysterious to the present-day Eldari, and even more so to the xenographers of the Imperium. Each craft world's place in the Webway is known only to its seers, who guard this knowledge with zealous secrecy. It is rumored that a transdimensional map created thousands of Terran years ago resides in the Black Library, revealing hidden paths long forgotten or lost. This priceless artifact holds secrets beyond mortal comprehension, kept hidden by the guardians of the Black Library. While some of the Webway's arterial passageways are large enough for spacecraft, most tunnels only permit Eldari strike forces on foot or small vehicles to pass. Though Eldari spacecraft can navigate the warp, it is perilous and a dangerous process. Risking a craft world in such a way would be like throwing a candle into a storm and hoping its flame endures. Consequently, the Asuryani and Drukhari rarely travel to places beyond a few light years from the safety of their Webway portals. Webway journeys are relatively fast, allowing space fleets to move easily between the network's major gateways. This enables the Eldari to transfer swiftly to locations directly connected by the Labyrinth dimension, but makes it extremely difficult for them to reach worlds without a gate into the network. So yeah, again, a lot of these paths are like pre-predicted. So even though that's a huge advantage, and like the entirety of the Webway, if you had mastery over it, you could probably go anywhere in the galaxy, but because they're limited in their knowledge and after disasters and all that kind of stuff, they have kind of set areas where they tend to be without risking too much. With the Eldari are also pretty risk averse generally.
Yeah.
So
we got a great question here. Why does Christian know what you and your wife dabble in? That's intimate. I think
I know
that's
everything.
Valid, but no.
I know what everyone dabbles in, including you, Matt.
Yeah.
I got files on everyone.
Yeah. Now we got a meme chat. We all went to high school together, so we all know each other from long times. So there's a meme chat, and we're making fun of the Matrix and asking Christian, what does it mean? What does it all mean? And we got nothing from him. Nothing useful.
It's a mystery. Cool. Well, I
Oh.
think I can dive into some of the notable events that happened in the Webway. So the first one I want to talk about is the port of Camorra. So Camorra rises as the primary nodal point of the Webway, expanding in size with each passing solar decade. Constructed entirely within the labyrinth dimension and thus beyond the jurisdiction of the ancient Eldar councils, Camorra becomes a refuge for those seeking to evade notice. So that is about M18 that like originates.
Which is crazy to think about. Like Camorra is, what is that, 22,000 years old?
Yeah, and it just keeps getting bigger as they like expand.
Yeah, it just keeps
out.
growing.
Yeah. It's cool too. Like it grows and then also parts get lost to the Webway and the warp, and then they expand in other directions. And like, it's a crazy place. Probably one of the craziest places in all of 40K, really.
Well, it's almost like a space Hulk in the Webway.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Just this massive twisting wreck of all these different things coming together and so many different
Building
things
up.
battling over it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So the Twilight cults started in M18 to M20, and amidst the burgeoning Eldari cults of pleasure, the worship of the Dark Muses flourishes. Leaders of the new era of hedonism ascend in power, eventually withdrawing from the physical realm to establish personal dominions within the Webway. These cults create sub-realms fueled by stolen suns, plunging solar systems into darkness. The Eldari disregard for these celestial losses marks the rise of Camorra as the epicenter of vice and decadence, heralding the birth of the Drukhari. So basically, it's just that as the worshipping of pleasure expands, they form what has become the pirates, the Eldar pirates.
And they steal literal suns from solar systems.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which is, they're just like they're pirates. Okay, I said that already. Their
They take whatever they want.
Their booty is stars. Yeah. So
That's
in
cool.
M25 to M30, the darkness begins to rise. The Eldari race descends into unprecedented depravity. Cults of pleasure and pain proliferate in the Webway's hidden depths, and even the core worlds of the Eldar society become enraptured by ever greater excesses. As the distinction between sensation-seeking and malevolence blurs, a new force emerges from the warp, and that leads to the fall.
Well, we just had a question. When did the city become completely Dark Eldar? And I'd probably say right around now.
Yeah, around the fall. Well, the other thing too is like the way the Eldar kind of narrative works is it's basically like they're just a slow version of any other kind of empire, like a really slow version, because there's like this kind of trend for empires to get big and they conquer everything and then they become like kind of decadent and then they fall apart, and then that's kind of what, and then they kind of have this lingering, they're still there but they're not what they used to be kind of thing. And that's kind of maybe a reference to like history, like the Roman Empire having this thing, but instead for the Eldar it took 60 million years to happen.
Yeah. It's fun, like whether you're trying to write these kind of archetypes or main storylines intentionally or not, they always kind of bleed through.
Yeah, well, maybe that's just like the idea of something that lives that long. Maybe it would stretch out how long it would take for certain things to happen. Because what if your like great grandfather was around today? Do you think like he would be like down with what modern society looks like? Probably not. And so if you had that like
Stretch
just
out.
yeah, if people just live
Yeah.
forever, they're not gonna, maybe their sensibilities wouldn't change as fast. Or maybe at least that's the premise of the Eldar. I don't know if that's how that actually pan out, but
I think that
Yeah,
makes
well,
sense.
yeah, I think so, for sure.
cool.
Yeah, and it is like a narrative trope. Like Tolkien uses it too with the Numenorians, right? Like
Yeah.
same idea. Yeah, but
America's going hard on it right now, unfortunately.
So the fall, speaking of which, the Eldari Empire is devastated by the cataclysmic birth of Sona. As the galaxy's core collapses into the immaterium, trillions die, and 1,000 worlds are engulfed by the Eye of Terra, the largest warp rift ever seen. Eldari civilization is shattered, leaving only Drukhari in the Webway, Exodites in the galaxy's fringes, and a few craft-world Eldari who escape aboard the craft worlds. Thus begins the long struggle against extinction. And I think this is like interesting to point out too, like the idea that like the Eldar society was huge. There was a lot of them, but it's only now in the post-fall that they're kind of seen as this like sparse race. Like there was a lot of them, and they all just got obliterated by the fall in Slaanesh.
Yeah. When you look at the galactic map and you see that big old blotch called the Eye of Terror,
that used to be the heart of the Eldar Empire. Yeah.
That was the crown jewel.
Yeah.
So Sigoric's summons. In the aftermath of the fall, the worshippers of Sigoric vanish into the Webway without explanation. And that's about M32. Then the war begins in about M33 641. Actually, that's not about. That's pretty precise. After centuries of isolation, Sigoric's followers return dramatically. The Harlequin mask of the Midnight Sorrow emerges from the Webway at Lilian Nadaw, launching a surprise assault on a horde of Slaaneshi demons. The breaching. In M37, Asurdal Vecht, Supreme Overlord of Gamora, reveals and forces open hidden portals linking each satellite realm and port city of the Webway. He constructs the Great Gates, massive fortifications guarded by Vecht's elite incubi and Kabbalite warriors. Over several Terran millennia of conflict, Gamora incorporates these previously autonomous regions, with only the realm of Shaddam remaining independent. The Chaos Webway breach of M37 579. A coven of Thousand Sun sorcerers performs a grand ritual in the Webway to access Gamora. At the ritual's peak, Drakari emerge from an invisible portal leading to a fierce battle. The conflict breaches the Webway, causing its walls to buckle and burst. The combatants become trapped in a shattered pocket reality, reportedly locked in an eternal cycle of conflict and rebirth. That kind of sounds sucky.
It's not ideal.
And there's not a lot of either of those people to go around. So if they're just stuck in this eternal portal, that kind of sucks. The war in the Webway. So from M38 514, Craftworld Ulthway and the Jade Knife Cabal of Gamora clash for dominance within the fractured Webway. The death toll rises significantly on both sides, leading to an uneasy truce as both factions recognize the value of their lives. Yeah, because like again, neither of these two sides can afford to lose numbers when you're so sparse. Like that's why the Drakari or pirates is they don't want to engage in wars and battles. They want to hit and run. And same with the Eldar, they can't afford it. So it makes sense that they're going to be much quicker to avoid outright conflict.
Yeah.
Sanctity breached in M41 998. Chaos Space Marines of the Thousand Suns. Sounds familiar. Fight their way back to the Black Library within the Webway. Led by the Eldari Master of Sorcerer Ahriman, they are thwarted by a powerful force of Eldari Harlequins and allies from Craftworld Ulthway and Craftworld Luganth. The battle results in the choked death of several major Webway arteries and the eventual expulsion of the Thousand Suns. The breach is sealed runically, but a section of the Webway is lost forever.
It's kind of cool just going through it and like how the Webway is like this living, shifting thing almost. You know, you could go back in there and a new tunnels has been grown, and you know they go in and do some rituals and blow up this part, and even though they try to rebuild it, it's never quite the same.
It's a rough patch job.
Yeah. We had a great question there. Do Exodites use the Webway, or do they just stay there on their planets? I would imagine they pretty much are homebound. They don't leave too often. But having said that, like they do have alliances with craft worlders, and there's no way that they don't have parties going back and forth. Like they're cousins, you know. If the craft world is going by an Exodite world, there's no way they're not meeting up for a quick like ceremony. Yeah.
And they certainly have access to the technology, and even within, like if you have a set of craft worlds in a solar system, I'm sure you could have pathways linking those worlds too, just for your people, right? So
I just read a great listener lore a couple days ago, and it was a Exodite who joined the Harlequins, but it's this cool fusion of, you know, Exodite Harlequin kind of thing. Very, very kind of it gives you a couple ideas of what and why they might use one of them. But yeah, they're typically homebodies, you know.
Yeah.
The next question we had, there was, is Webway so safe? Why don't the craft world just stay in there? They pretty much pals with the Dark Eldar, and besides Thousand Suns, some Tyranid is pretty much safer than real space. I would imagine it comes down to a resource thing. Like you can't grow crops in the Webway. I know craft worlds are huge and they're self-maintaining, but there has to be some, maybe they have to charge on solar. You know, there has to be some type of resource that they need to leave to get, because the Webway doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Like for the Dark Eldar, it's souls. You know?
I do think that is maybe a bit of a plot hole that GW can easily fill, but we're kind of doing their job for them of trying to find reasons why they would leave, because it does make sense. Granted, also a lot of Eldar plots tend to be around like shifting other people's fortunes and fates and things like that. So even that itself draws you out of the warp to have to go do this task, right? Like, oh, I have to go interfere in this planet to do this thing, or go collect this relic, or whatever that might be, right?
And remember too, like the Eldar's home isn't in the Webway. They want to return to the worlds outside that they've kept their paradise worlds, right? Like that's their ultimate, that's where they want to be. They don't want to live in their craft worlds they have goals outside. So they're you can think maybe, yeah, they can just live there, but they don't want to just leave the galaxy to whatever fate.
You go live in the channel and see how you like
it. And answer. That's what I say.
Yeah, there's some stuff that happened in the Webway. There's some of the major themes. You know, there's another thing I was reading about where the salamanders invaded Cormora, and to do that, they would have had to enter Webway portals and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, that's just another shifting, turning of Cormora. That happens every other day there, so I didn't really feel like it was necessary to include.
Yeah, like that's only like a blip in the whole history of a minor incursion by Space Marines is nothing.
Yeah. But these were a couple big ones where it's like, oh, they really did some damage to the Webway on that one. You know,
they broke it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too. Is like the Webway is decaying and falling apart because, like, again, the Eldar didn't make it, so they're not. They can maybe keep it up, they can maintain it, but like creating it new doesn't seem to be within their capabilities.
Yeah, it's like patchwork again. Yeah. You can try and stop the leak, and then maybe it'll spring a leak in a few years, but at least you're holding it back for a little while.
Yeah.
And another leak will spring up somewhere else and just.
So what does it feel like to walk through a Webway? We got this here so we can all close our eyes together. You know, you two can hold hands because you're in the same room. So that's
I'm already holding his hand.
But allowed.
We were holding hands this whole time.
That's fake and gay. I don't like it. So close your eyes. Portal appearance. As one approaches a Webway portal, the entrance may resemble a shimmering, iridescent doorway, framed by intricate patterns of wraithbone that pulse with soft, ethereal glow. The portal itself appears as a swirling vortex or a rift in reality, with colors shifting and blending in mesmerizing display of purples, blues, and green. The passage through. Upon stepping through the portal, the surroundings dissolve into a blinding, kaleidoscopic burst of light and color. Time and space become fluid, with the transition feeling both instantaneous and drawn out. The sensation is akin to moving through a fluid curtain of shifting energies, where the usual constraints of the physical world are temporarily suspended. The Webway environment.
If you want to feel the sensations of what it's like to do this at home, go get a fork and find your nearest outlet. Close your eyes.
Don't advise that. Someone's gonna do it, and then I'm gonna get sued. I'm gonna say,
that's a James complaint. Yeah, I can't believe it, man. We didn't even say anything, and we got demonetized. I'm like, I've said a lot of stuff, and I've never been demonetized before. But you know, like Fall of Empires, they're shadow banning people for some reason. Anyways, what does it feel like when you're in the Webway now that you've made it? Join the Patreon. Christian has a wife to keep. James has his own motivations, and me, I'm just greedy for money. Okay. Entrance hall. Once through, one finds himself in a grand vaulted corridor lined with walls of polished wraithbone that reflect and retract light in a myriad of ways. The walls are adorned with ancient glowing runes and sigils that pulsate gently, casting a soft ambient light through the outer corridor. Ambience. The Webway is characterized by serene, almost otherworldly quiet, punctuated only by the faint hum of psychic energies and the distant echoes of footsteps or voices. The air feels dense with a palpable psychic resonance that is both invigorating and slightly disorienting. Yeah, like, you know, we're reading this through the perspective of an Eldar. Just imagine a human walking through this and this feeling, and how amplified that probably would be.
Yeah, you might feel like nauseous and like throw up after, like too much, overwhelmed.
Arrival in the Webway. Visual transition. As one nears the end of the journey through the Webway, the surroundings start to shift and solidify. The fluid shifting colors of the Webway give way to more unstable or more stable structures, with the intricate labyrinth corridors becoming more defined and the ambient light settling into more consistent glow. The portal exit. The exit portal may appear as a counter to the entrance, a shimmering fractal gateway that gradually resolves itself into a tangible solid form. The light intensifies momentarily as one passes through, following by a sudden clarity as the Webway's ambient light fades into the environment of the destination. Visuals on the other side. Emergence. Stepping out of the portal into real space or another dimension, the surroundings of the Webway fade away, revealing the new environment in stark contrast. The transition is marked by a brief moment of disorientation as the senses readjust to the new surroundings, but the visual splendor of the Webway lingers in memory. New environment. The destination could range from a stark, expansive voids of the galaxy to the vibrant, intricate realms of other dimensions. The visual experience contrasts sharply with the structured, intricate beauty of the Webway, highlighting the unique and surreal nature of the Eldari passage. Or it could just be Christian appearing in your closet to watch you sleep.
That's happened more than once.
The Eldari perception. Enhanced sensory experience. To the Eldari, the Webway is a living, sentient construct. Their psychic sensitivity allows them to perceive the subtle, ever-changing patterns of energy and light that define the Webway. They see the intricate network of pathways as a dynamic tapestry of interconnected threads, with each thread representing a potential route or corridor. Spatial awareness. Their perception of space within the Webway is fluid and multidimensional, allowing them to navigate the labyrinth structure with ease. Their visual experience is enriched by the psychic connection, which enhances their abilities to sense and interpret the Webway's subtle shifts and fluctuations. Yeah, it would be quite the thing. You know, I would never want to do Star Trek and go in the teleporter. We all know what happens there, but this sounds fun.
Yeah, would you rather be in Stargate or Star Trek? Definitely Stargate. That's way better.
Yeah. I love the PS90s, man. I'd be in any universe that lets me have one of those. Panama, will you let me, please?
They have them in Canada with a barrel extension. They don't look nearly as cool. But...
it's like 12 feet long, and you have to walk around.
Giant stick.
All right. We got a question there. Do you think the Laughing God really knows the Webway? All the Webway? Probably not. But maybe, man, like, he is a god. What is time to him? He's been around for, you know, since the beginning of time, essentially.
Or is he an old one?
Yeah, you know, that would be a fun little Tales of the Warp segment to do. Old one. Are they really just dark Eldar gods? Or dark Eldar gods just really old ones? You know? They passed on their legacy, their knowledge.
They're just so powerful, they seem godlike to you.
Yeah.
This is some heresy from Tree Pies. The Laughing God isn't an old one, the Emperor is. How dare you? Banned.
We've been worshipping a Xeno this whole time.
Oh, no.
Ironic. The ultimate grimdark. All right, the Dark City. And we covered part of the Dark City, or the whole of the Dark City, in episode 36. And it's Webway Origami.
Yeah, man, that was a classic episode. I told Eric about how many times if you folded a piece of paper it'd take to get to the moon. He didn't believe
he tried to do it?
He tried to do it. Yeah, that was another thing of debate. Apparently, you can only fold a paper so many times before it becomes literally impossible. Doesn't matter the size of paper.
Yeah, Mythbusters tried it with like a hanger-sized piece of paper, I remember.
I learned a lot from that show.
Mostly how to blow stuff up.
Yeah, that was about my childhood education.
As the ancient Eldari fell into decadence and depravity, among the pleasure seekers and the endlessly curious were those whose pursuit of excess became ever more extreme. A great proportion of the aristocracy, possessing the wealth and time, delved into every aspect of decadence, pushing boundaries beyond reason. It's okay. A little bit of decadence is okay. We don't want to go unreasonable decadence.
No. Just like Friday night decadence, you know.
Once a week is plenty.
Yeah, exactly.
The leaders of the cults of excess, obsessed with their own power, relocated into the labyrinthine dimension of the Webway, establishing hidden ports and strongholds at key nodal points to continue their debased pursuits. These realms were almost invariably linked via portals to the sprawling, exhilaratingly lawless city of Commorragh. Originally the greatest of the Webway port cities, Commorragh was impossibly vast, able to transport fleets to vital planets of the Eldari Empire through its many portals. Because of its strategic importance and access to far-flung corners of real space, Commorragh was the most important location in the Webway, existing outside the jurisdiction of the great Eldari councils. Its autonomy made Commorragh a magnet for those wishing to conceal their deeds from prying eyes, becoming a haven for the darkest aspects of Eldari society. The Eldari sealed within this Webway did not escape the fall unscathed, their souls slowly drained into the warp, consumed over time by she who thirsts, the Chaos God Slaanesh. The Eldari of the craft worlds used mystical spirit stones and infinity circuits to deny Slaanesh's hold upon them, while the Cormorite Eldari became experts at ensuring that the lesser beings suffered in their stead. By steeping themselves in extreme acts of decadence, the Eldari of the Webway found that the curse of Slaanesh could be abated. The absorbed psychic emanations of agony drawn from other sentient beings nourished their withered souls, filling their frames with unnatural energies. Assuming they could regularly feed on the pain of others, the Eldari of the Webway became physically immune to the passage of time. Thus, the Drukhari, or Dark Ones, were born, a race of sadistic parasites who subsist upon the anguish of others to prevent the slow death of their immortal souls. To this day, the Drukhari raid the galaxy from the canker that is Commorragh, sowing misery and destruction, spiriting away countless captives for their own horrible ends. Commorragh appears within the Webway as a composite urban center on an impossibly vast scale, a hazy, contradictory realm that can overawe the sanity of any who approach it. Thousands of starships dock each day at its spires, for the Drukhari are far more numerous than the Imperium of Man, or even their craftworld Azuriani kin, fully suspect. Commorragh hosts more than just the Drukhari. Many alien mercenaries, bounty hunters, and even human renegades risk their souls to do business in the Dark City, seeking the riches it offers. Yeah.
It's crazy that it started off as a craft world and just how truly massive that craft world was. And then I think, James, it was you who said it's like the Space Hulks, where it's just more just kind of get absorbed onto it. And then all of a sudden it's just this massive, out of control city where you couldn't map it, just like you can't map the Webway.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting built up. And like you said, some sections get lost and it just like constantly evolving and changing with like a few points of like static holding it all together.
Yeah. And
yeah, I also love the aesthetic of just like it's all dark spires. It has a very, I don't know, Sauron-y vibe to it.
Yeah,
cool.
Mordor chic.
Mordor chic.
Yeah.
Oh, you dog.
Is that you got to decorate your basement?
We had that question where it's like, well, why don't they just hang out in the Webway? Well, there's also these guys in here.
Do you want to be locked in there too with them?
Yeah. But even for
the
them,
tunnel
like,
is filled with vampires.
Can I live somewhere with a little less vampires, please?
I heard Ball's nice.
Misled, fake news. Yeah, no, and even the Dark Eldar, they need to leave for souls. Like every Eldar, because of what they've done and their psychic connection, they're being fed on. So they need to either, feed themselves in that vampiric way, or they eventually wither out and die, whether they're in the Webway or not. So you couldn't just linger.
Cool, yeah. So one of the other major items in the Webway is the Black Library, which basically, yeah, it's a nexus of all this crazy knowledge put in one place. The Black Library of Chaos, or simply the Black Library, is the secret Asuryani craft world that houses the Eldari's forbidden lore concerning the ruinous powers hidden deep within the labyrinthine passages of the Webway. Following the fall and the birth of Slaanesh, the Eldari craft worlds became the sole bearers of their ancient sorcery and knowledge of chaos. As the craft worlds drifted apart, this knowledge became fragmented, and with the loss of some craft worlds over the millennia, irreplaceable Eldari lore vanished with them. The Black Library is governed by the Black Council, a body of the wisest Asuryani farseers drawn from all the craft worlds, representing the closest the fractious Eldari have to a unified advisory body. The Eldari possess a deeper understanding of chaos than humanity, though much was lost when their empire fell. Yet a single source of their knowledge has remained untouched since the fall. In a concealed location, rumored to be at the very heart of the Webway, rests the Black Library, a repository of tomes, books, scrolls, and codices detailing the Eldari's extensive knowledge of the warp, supposedly back to first edition. So
That is some ancient lore.
that is some ancient lore right there. Some of it retconned. So the forbidden lore contained within describes the blandishments, influences, forms, creatures, perils, promises, and horrors of chaos. The existence of the Black Library is known to only a select few, and entry is granted to even fewer. It defends itself against the unworthy by allowing access only to those who have confirmed and tempered the chaos within themselves. Confronted. The immature and still vulnerable to the seditions of chaos find themselves barred from its gateways. Thus, only the solitaires of the Eldari Harlequin troops are permitted to traverse its halls, with whispers of a human, possibly an Inquisitor, having gained entry as well.
Yeah, very cool. This one place where almost all Eldar have the potential of going, but not really. Like anyone could become a Harlequin, whether we're saying an Exodite or Craft Whirler, or potentially maybe even a Dark Eldar guy. Because the Harlequins are like the lore keepers. They're the storytellers. They literally put on performances to tell of the fall, and they go from craft world to craft world. So it's this really cool like combination. Like I just picture a kill team where you could go hard and really characterize everyone and give them that little extra bit of love, you know?
Do you think so? If they had all this knowledge about chaos, why did they end up creating Slaanesh? Is that just a hole they had in their knowledge? They're like, well, there's a god of plagues and a god of wrath, but there isn't one of excess. So,
Well, I got a question for you. Why do I steal if I know it's wrong? Because you got an answer?
Feels good.
There you go.
I guess because you tell yourself you can get away with it,
Or temporary benefit, perhaps, you know. And just because people have knowledge doesn't mean everyone's going to follow it.
That's true. So
Like-
yeah, maybe they did have this. I just mean like if you had like everyone in their society was basically following this, like most of the Eldar society was going down this path of access, and yet they had the knowledge of chaos, such an intimate knowledge of chaos.
Well,
maybe they just decided they didn't care anymore, or maybe it's like, oh, that's just old crap that no one.
Well, like
cares
a
about
lot of them
anymore.
did care, and that's where like the craft worlders came from. You know, they built those ships and they're like, we see what's about to happen. We are out of here, and they dipped. And same with the Exodite people, where they're just like, we didn't even want to get involved in that in the first place. You know, so there were factions that were doing the shame finger for sure in the direction of the now Eye of Terror.
And then they get to do the greatest "I told you so" in history.
Yeah, exactly. I told you so, and get off my lawn. Cox Wraithbone gun, Wraith cannon.
Cool.
The history of the library. The Black Library stands as a solitary, untarnished repository of the Eldari's knowledge on chaos, created by the enigmatic Eldari deity Segurok, the Laughing God. The precise intent behind its creation remains shrouded in mystery. Enshrouded within the Webway, far beyond the Imperium's reach, the Black Library is described by the Eldari as a shadowy craft world, a repository of the arcane studies of the Immaterium and the entities dwelling within. The library's vast collection includes tomes and writings detailing all facets of chaos, its dangers, its promises, and unspeakable horrors. Encased in an almost impenetrable psychic shield, the Black Library is overseen by the Eldari Guardian scribes, who have diligently preserved and transcribed its knowledge since the fall. Yeah, it is kind of cool, like 10,000 years of unbroken knowledge, essentially.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Beyond mere safeguarding, Eldari lore, the library acquires any new knowledge of chaos from across the galaxy, including in famous texts like the Book of Magnus from the Thousand Suns, Primarch, and the Book of Logar from the Word Bearers, Primarch, both predating the Horus Heresy. Serving as a vault to protect dangerous knowledge as a beacon of wisdom for those combating chaos, the Black Library's existence is known only to a few, who access granted to even fewer. The library's psychic defenses, embodied in the Infinity Circuit, reject the weak and corruptible, admitting only those who have mastered their own temptations of chaos. 2 factions are permitted regular access: the elusive human Illuminati and the Eldari Solitaires, the most perilous of the Harlequins, notably Imperial Inquisitor Bryanslav Chesvak, gained entry once, proving himself worthy to study mankind's interaction with chaos. Yeah, wouldn't that be a fucking hall to walk down, of all of humans' interactions with chaos? And you're just like, okay, so they birthed Nurgle. Great. Okay, so they birthed Khorne, and we thought we were bad with the fucking Slaanesh, dude. Okay, I think they also birthed Chinch.
Well, did they? I thought those were all primordial, even before
I don't know where they land nowadays. They've bounced back and forth, where like Khorne at one point was created during the Dark Ages.
Yes, it was, again, in old lore, like
I don't think
explicitly stated that he was created during the Dark Ages. But then they also had this thing where, like, once the Elder God is born, it has always been. It's kind of like that.
Yeah,
warp,
because the warp has no time.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I guess it depends on which book you're reading.
Yeah, I kind of could look at it this way too. Like, there's the 2 stages. There's like the conception, where since the dawn of the universe there's been the conception of these beings, but it was only until they reached the Dark Age when humans bumped that up into the birthing project, or when Slaanesh was birthed. So, there might be a bunch of chaos gods out there right now that are still in that conception phase that we haven't given enough emotion into even.
Yeah, and again, really, this all could have also been retconned too, because there's a bunch of stuff about, like, and I remember we had this big argument before too about where humans, like medieval humanity, wasn't even enough people globally. Well, shouldn't have been enough people globally to affect the warp. You had all these other species that were like already galaxy spanning empires, like the Eldar or like the Necron or like the War in Heaven, that you would think would have spawned Khorne before humans did. Right? Like, there's other stuff going on. Humans aren't that old or that psychically connected.
Yeah, and that's part of what I would push. Like, that's part of the reason that I'd be a little more skeptical that it's humans creating them, because the Eldar, it took like trillions of Eldar to create Slaanesh. And yet the humans in the Dark Ages are responsible for Khorne. That seems
like Eldar propaganda to me.
That does sound like Eldar propaganda.
Make Eldar great again. Yeah. For sure. Like, new lore, it's probably their primordial. They've kind of always been there. But I don't mind it, man. Like, I just figure it's the warp, and like, does it make sense? How did these humans do it at this time? Man, maybe the stars were aligned just right, and that one goat was killed just so good.
Or we will never.
Who's to say? Who's to say until we try?
The Lord, until we try. You want to try birthing an Elder God tonight? You guys down?
Yeah,
I was down.
So I got a couple more things here. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say also the whole thing about like the people able to access the Black Library. It's interesting that humans have achieved that. If you know anything about how Eldar look down on humans, for the most part, but there's a couple that have made it. And then another kind of thought I had was like, I think technically Grey Knights would probably get access, being like pretty immune to the effects of the warp, because the whole guard against people entering the Black Library is people that are potentially tainted or taintable.
Yeah.
by the warp, but Grey Knights have a pretty good track record for.
I wonder what would keep them out would just be like their own like purism. Like, we don't need Xenos text. I got my Force Glaive and my Aegis armor.
They're just at the gate, like, I will burn down your library if you let me in. Go ahead, let me in.
I hate books. I hate them.
Well, that's fair, because like what would they need from it at that point? They are the ultimate
weapon
against chaos that humanity has. What more could they learn? They basically are impervious to chaos. They slate that. Their job
chaos is worse than
humans.
I already thought.
The other thing too is, I was gonna say, is we are technically the Harlequins of our people.
Oh, except we're not dancing or painting our
I was
faces.
gonna say that's the next evolution of the podcast is when we go into video format.
I'll get a checkered pattern on my face
and do the dance. We'll tell all the podcasts.
And this is how porn was born.
So I'm looking for an OnlyFans manager as well. Merch guy, OnlyFans manager.
We will reenact the creation of Slaanesh with our naked horns.
All right, we got some other humans that made it there. Inquisitor Jack Draco also infiltrated the library, pilfering the book of Ranadan Drandra, known among scholars as the Eldar Book of Fate. That guy is really old. Like, that guy's Rogue Trader Day. So even some of this, like, you know, it's hard to know that even if it wasn't retconned, does that guy even exist? Like, let's be real. Did he ever, you know, but he made it.
He stole a book. He stole a book from the Black Library.
The late fees. Think of the late fees. Time means nothing in there. It could be an eternity till you get it back. The Chaos Sorcerer Ahriman of the Thousand Suns Traitor Legion sought entry to the library, driven by the futile quest to gain favor with the Master. The Changer of Ways, for centuries, the Black Library and its guardians repelled his attempts. So he had tried. Yeah.
Did he succeed?
I don't think he did. But wait, there's more. In 998 M41, just before Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, Ahriman led his warband into the Webway, clashing violently with the Harlequins in the craft worlds of Uthway and Luganatha. Despite advancing close to the library, the heretic Astartes were driven back after their invasions caused the Webway's major arteries to be choked with corpses. The breach was sealed by corpses, but the Eldari lost a segment of the Webway forever. Perfect. Where does Wraith Bone come from?
Actual people's bones.
Yeah, I do appreciate that there is usually a focus for, like, Ahriman's stories do seem to revolve around him questing for knowledge, and that does lead him to, like, fight certain people. And I do appreciate that is usually the case. Like, you don't have, like, I don't know, that seems like a logical place for him to be story-wise and lore-wise for the Thousand Suns. I like that that's on brand.
Yeah, like, his whole thing is he was the guy who kind of botched the spell and got everyone turned to dust, him and Magnus, you know, and now he's trying to turn all his brothers back into flesh bodies, which admirable. I like it, but
he's been working on that project for a long time.
Yeah, like, try something else, man. You're bashing your head against a Harlequin invisible wall. It's not working.
He has gotten pretty close to succeeding before, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's several times where it was just barely failed.
And maybe in the next episode of Warhammer, he'll do it.
It's just enough to tempt him to try again.
The Adventures of Ahriman.
Yeah, no, it is cool. Like, there's tons of examples of people trying to get in there, and it's neat how some people want to get in there because they think they can master chaos, while there's not so interested or whatever. Yeah. I also imagine, like, the Inquisitors that are let in, like, that has to just be an Eldar plot somehow. Like, that human goes home and, like, he opens the book he took home and demons just invade the planet, you know, and the Eldar laughing. Like,
yeah. I don't know if you talked about it later on, but what's his name? Jagdai Khan. There's rumors of him becoming the guardian of the Black Library. Right?
Yeah, like, he got lost in the Webway, and you know, I don't want to say anymore. I know that, and I know he has some Webway interactions, but I think it's pretty shrouded still.
Yeah,
But
I don't think
wrong.
they've. It's one of those things where like they leave it open ended. Like there's a mysterious guardian who's like very large and fits vaguely the potential description of someone that could be a Primarch, but is never really said.
Yeah, because he was kind of like always pretty staunch against chaos. You know, he was like pretty adamant, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like maybe his soul is deemed worthy to be, or even like such a capable warrior to be the guardian of the Black Library. But
yeah,
I'm just speculating.
We have a couple good questions. Do you think that if the Dark Angels had a cure to the Slaaneshi soul suckiness, would they go for it? Like a less sucky state of being, or are they too far gone that they would keep doing what they're doing? I think they're too far gone at this point.
Dark Eldar.
I think every story narratively calls for a redemption arc, and the potential of that makes some things more interesting. Do I think that would happen? No. But I think that narratively would always be better if there was a possibility of.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate like that the cure for it is in the grim dark. So it's like, yay, great. We don't have to go raid souls, but we have to eat shit now.
Yeah, sure. It'll be
That's
awful.
The cure.
Sorry. I just mean like there's always good. It's always good for narratives for there to be a possibility of redemption, either for them to reject or to embrace. Either way. I'm not sure if that exists in the lore somewhere of like a Dark Eldar deciding to like, man, this is sucky. I don't want to do this anymore. But even if they never choose to do it, I think that opens up so much narrative possibility. Because otherwise you're just, oh great, we're evil and we like being evil forever, and there's no conflict in that. But if there is like, oh, could I redeem myself somehow? That makes it more compelling. Like, do I choose to do that, or am I too far into this path that I just choose not to? I don't know.
I think you need to look at the setting Noble Bright or Brighthammer.
No, you don't have
redemption, James. James complains at gmail.com. Send them in.
No, I agree.
No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Go for it.
No, I hear what you're saying. And like redemption arc's perfect, but
they're not going to do it because most of them revel in their evil.
Yeah. The next question I had here was maybe the humans in the Dark Ages were a tipping point. They didn't have to do much, but it was just enough. Now, time's a funny thing too. So like, you know, was it the Dark Ages? Was it a couple thousand years before? Whatever. Hard to say with time. There's this fun theory where like the way humans kind of separated off from monkeys as we started eating magic mushrooms. And that's kind of how we became sentient and aware. And, you know, you could put into how much thought you want into that. But like, if that's kind of a similar vein, maybe there is something that is the first time humans started getting psychic. And maybe it's just like that initial, like a crying baby it's loud, you know, it's so tiny and it's new, but it's loud. So maybe it's a similar concept of that first time humans kind of get that soul. It's tiny, but it's loud and has a huge impact, and it shifts things. It moves big people.
Maybe, but then again, like you have whole races already developed and fighting whole wars and like intergalactic conflict. Like they're killing way more people,
and more like a lot of them
don't,
and more powerfully psychic than humans.
But a lot of them have either their own deities, like Gork and Mork for the orcs, or they have ways to negate the warp, like the Necrons just completely don't. Tyranids completely don't. Like a lot of the things just, they know how dangerous the warp is, so they try not to mess with it. And just like how the humans have just been trying, we said at the beginning of this episode, how do you battle the warp? Everyone's battling it.
You might be persuading me a little bit.
I'll take it.
I could see that.
I won't go to my grave on this one. You might, but
I go
if you don't agree with me.
Yeah, I'll fight and die on any point to the death.
All right. Let's get into the final act of the Black Library.
All right. At the very core of the Black Library, a silver-lit vault houses a singular artifact, a plinth of intricately carved obstinate bearing a crystalline tome believed to hold the sacred words of the Eldari god Kegarak himself. Since the fall, this tome has remained sealed, bound by flickering chains of ethereal light. However, recent omens have begun to unfold, foretelling events such as a fallen sorcerer's near triumph over the library's secret, and a king resurrected to once again lead mankind. With these signs manifesting, the chains of light around the tome have waned and finally vanished. Now, as the Great Rift's cataclysmic birth has occurred, the tome has opened within its luminous pages. The Shadow Seers have uncovered a cryptic script, a final hidden act that dramatically reshapes the story of the fall. Written in ink of light and shadow, it offers a slender hope for the Eldari, outlining a complex galaxy-spanning scheme with the potential to alter their fate. The threads of fate have long predicted the ultimate triumph of chaos in the Ranadandra, the final battle of creation. Yet, inscribed within the crystal tome is Kegarak's ultimate jest, a cunning plan to trick Slaanesh into expending her power, not to annihilate the Eldari, but to preserve them. The specifics of how this improbable outcome could be achieved remain maddeningly vague. Nonetheless, the Harlequins accept the god's words with unwavering faith, driven by total devotion to Kegarak and his inscrutable methods. They have commenced the final dance of the grand scheme, prepared to see it through or face utter annihilation in the attempt. Well, there you go, James. That's your answer right there if you're looking for redemption. The Book of Kegarak.
Wow.
Just turn to
Have
page
you heard of our
52.
Lord and Savior Kegarak?
Man, these Harlequins keep opening Webway portals into my closet in the middle of the night to preach about Kegarak. I don't know how to turn them away. I've said no a dozen times.
Just keep showing up on your doorstep.
How do you deal?
Yeah,
it's very cool. Like I love all the Eldar mythos, both pre and prophecy. You know, we have all the gods and what they got up to and what happened, and they all left these prophecies, and there's so much mythos there.
Yeah, and literally, James, what you're saying about the potential cure for the Dark Eldar is there, and all the Eldar.
So okay, well then that's perfect. Like the idea that that would be there, but then they choose not to embrace it or choose not to pursue it.
Or and like who
makes
knows
it
what
more
that cure
compelling.
is, right? Like again, they're vague on the details. So like,
Yeah.
whatever it is, or if it'll even work, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Like, maybe
Yeah, like if that box
it's
had an Inquisitor logo on it, you open it, it's just a virus bomb. Problem solved. Like you
Right,
don't know what's
exactly.
in
You're
there.
dealing
Man.
with you're dealing with a prankster god, so it'd be those like stupid snakes that like surprise, there was no cure all along.
The cure was just
You're
opening
all
your
doomed.
heart to the possibility.
Oh wow.
Maybe the cure was the demons we summoned along the way.
Wow, thanks Kegarak. Wow. The Imperial Webway project. Yeah, so you know, we've talked a lot about the Eldar and their interactions with it, but they're not the only ones who've dabbled. The Imperium, they got their messy little fingers into it. In late 30th millennium, during the tumultuous unification wars on Terra, the Emperor of Mankind unearthed the portal buried deep beneath a vast and inhospitable desert on the Terran continent of Asia. This portal led to a sprawling network of tunnels known as the Webway, constructed eons prior by a Xenos race older than the Terran sun. This discovery occurred before the construction of the Imperial Palace, though the exact date remains unknown. With this ancient network, the Emperor found the core of the psychic amplification device that would later become the Golden Throne. This device was integral to the construction of a portal into the Webway from Terra. Prior to the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor tasked tens of thousands of Adeptus Mechanicum tech priests with modify the Golden Throne. This transformation aimed to establish it as the central node of his secret Imperial Webway project. The Emperor's grand design sought to open the Eldari Webway to humanity, creating a direct portal from Terra. This would allow for instantaneous interstellar travel between the worlds of the nascent Imperium man, bypassing the dangers of the warp and eliminating the need for astro-telepathy as the sole means of interstellar communication. The goal was to connect all branches of humanity instantaneously, fostering a level of unity unparalleled in human history, akin to the lost advantages of the Eldari civilization before its fall. The Golden Throne's gateway, the Imperial Conduit, and the alien-built Webway tunnels were both physical and psychic in nature. The Webway tunnels naturally generated a psychic shield, while the Emperor's gateway and conduit required continuous psychic reinforcement to maintain their protective sheath. This psi shield was crucial for sealing the webway from the warp and its demonic entities. However, well, actually, maybe let's stop there. Do you guys have anything to say about that a little bit right now before we turn it 40K and wreck it?
I'm actually surprised. Like, I'm actually on the Emperor's side with this, in that the Webway does not belong to the Eldar. Who do they think they are to be its sole guardian?
Everything is man's.
Right,
Mankind
exactly.
owns everything.
But like, in seriousness,
it's their birthright.
It's not even their
no,
creation.
Yeah. And like we it's assumed to be believed that the humans were seeded by the old ones too. So like it's cousins, man. Like you have no more claim over it. Yeah, I like that kind of concept.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I hadn't heard that before. The idea that humanity was seeded by the old ones. Is that old lore? Is that?
I think it's pretty well established that like most sapient life was seeded by the old ones.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And like the way they describe seeding is always like it's hitting the random button. They didn't intentionally seed the Eldar. They didn't intentionally seed the humans. They seeded the galaxy, and then they found the Eldar were useful and the orcs were not. You know?
No, the orcs were useful.
Well, okay,
for fighting the
and I thought they were specifically engineered as weapons.
No. It's all just like seeding, and then you make alliances with the old ones if you're that useful, and then there might be some of the trading of technologies, just like with the Webway and stuff. But ultimately the orcs proved to be too much for the old ones to handle, and then they kind of stopped using them and preferred to use some of these other client species that they had. Like I think the Jokero were mentioned. I think there's a couple other ones too.
Yeah. And there are a lot of other species outside of the main races of 40K. You see a lot of them pop up in Camorra too, right? Like there's tons of other sentient species, and a lot that were wiped out during the the Great Crusade too. So yeah, it's not just like a narrow batch of races that exist.
No, it's a good plan.
I do have one other question. Like the reason why you'd want the Webway is obvious, because it's so much better than traveling through the warp. But I'm curious why they wouldn't pursue the other technologies that exist for traveling the galaxy, because the warp and the Webway are not the only ones. Granted, the Necron aren't really a thing yet, but they have means for traveling interstellarly. Usually, it seems like gravity type transportation is one of the main ones, or the Tyranids also have a form of gravity based interstellar travel. So like, why do you think that the Webway is it's obviously the best one because it's instantaneous and it's the safest? But why would the Emperor only choose this one?
Because you don't have to deal with anyone else. Like if you can get into the Webway yourself, you're not dependent on another Xenos race to use it or to access it, or right? Like any other method. Every other method you need access to the and the Necron are never going to share their stuff with you.
No, but
and the Tyranids you have to capture and control.
But my point is that technology exists. So there are safe ways.
I see what you're saying. Like
there are safe ways to travel interstellarly that isn't based on the warp.
Well, consider this though. Consider this as just a happenstance. Like the Emperor emerges and he's digging around in the desert and he stumbles across this and he's like, I just discovered the greatest secret in the galaxy on my doorstep. And this happened very early on. Like this happened Unification War. So at that point you're like, do I even need to really look elsewhere? He hasn't left Terra at this point to even look elsewhere, and he's already found this.
Sure. That's something
the secret of the galaxy.
Else,
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense.
Carrying on. However, the Emperor's efforts were disrupted by Magnus the Red, the Primarch of the Thousand Suns. Magnus' psychic warning, intended to alert the Emperor of the Horus treachery just before the Horus heresy erupted, penetrated the multiple psychic shields that summoned the Imperial Palace. The psychic intrusion caused significant rifts in the protective shield around the Terran Webway portal, allowing the creatures of the warp to breach the Webway tunnels of Terra. Though the valiant sacrifice of many members of the Legio Custodes and Sisters of Silence, the Imperium managed to stem the tide of demonic incursions, preventing them from breaching the warp and assaulting the sacred soil of Terra itself. However, the Terran Webway gate remained sealed only as long as the Emperor was able to power its protective shield directly from his throne atop the Golden Throne. The strength required to maintain this shield was immense, and only the most powerful human psykers could mentally substitute the Emperor's efforts. Yet, only he possessed the strength to keep the gate closed permanently, and the demonic forces gathered around him. This task became increasingly arduous, turning the Golden Throne into both a beacon and a prison for the Emperor. During the Siege of Terra, the climactic battle of the galaxy-spanning civil war, the Emperor was temporarily relieved of the immense burden by the selfless sacrifice of Malcador the Sigillite. Malcador, the Emperor's oldest and most trusted advisor, and the potent psyker in his own right, took on the monumental task of maintaining the shield. However, this respite was short-lived, as that effort drained Malcador's life force, granting the Emperor a chance to confront his once favored son Horus aboard the battle barge, the vengeful spirit in orbit around Terra. In the end, Horus was utterly vanquished by the Emperor, his body, mind, and soul destroyed. However, the Emperor was mortally wounded in the battle and was brought back to Terra. There, his ravaged body was placed in permanent stasis on the Golden Throne. The device was swiftly modified by the Adeptus Mechanicus under the guidance of Rogal Dorn, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, to prevent the Emperor's death. Acting as a complex life support machine, the Golden Throne has preserved the Emperor's desiccated and decaying body. And what is that fucking word even?
Desiccated.
Desiccated. Okay, fun. Good to know. I like to think I learn a new word every day, but I ain't learning one every day. That's crazy talk. The Emperor's consciousness continues to guide the Astronomicon, the psychic beacon that illuminates the warp and aids in navigation. He also said to constantly battle the forces of chaos to ensure the survival of flourishing of humanity across the galaxy. It remains uncertain whether the Emperor's ability to protect individual humans from the power of chaos is related to the destroyed Terran portal of the Webway or the mysterious alien device at the heart of the Golden Throne itself. So there's a lot of information there. That's like some of the core mythos of 40K, really. It's just the Horus Heresy. What happened with the Emperor? Who was he? What does he do? What happened to all the stuff that he worked on? None of it ends well, and we end up in the grimdark of 40K, unfortunately. But if you want to learn more kind of about how the interactions of the Astronomicon and the Golden Throne and all that, I have a list of a couple episodes you should probably listen to, because this is not about that. You know, they came, they tried to take it over. It was a very cool breach, but ultimately unsuccessful. So the episodes are episode 99, The Emperor. Also, might as well listen to that Sigillite episode 103. And then episode 44, the Astronomicon, was great. And then somewhere right in that 40 range, there was like a Imperial, no, there was like a space transportation episode where we talk about Necron dolmen gates and all these different things. So maybe with all that combined, now you've come back and listen, and yeah, we carry on.
Should we just pause for a minute so people can go back and look at those episodes? Maybe a couple hour pause here, and then
yeah, couple hour pause. Okay, yeah.
So because we also exist in the warp, time means nothing to me. So I just assumed they already watched it.
Little known fact is Mark actually locks us in the Webway to record. It's not physical doors that we can just open. Otherwise, we would have left a long time ago.
Yeah, the locks are psychic.
Have you found Jordan yet? Or
he's in the deep Webway.
Deep.
Before we go on to the next section here, someone in the chat. I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but do the Dark Eldar attack the Webway gate on Terra with Chaos 2? The answer to that is no. The Dark Eldar are also enemies of Chaos, so like the demons would not like work together with them to assault Terra. They would be just as much a threat to the Dark Eldar as to humans on the gate.
Yeah, they're worried about the demons assaulting Cormora as we speak. You know, they got their own demon problems.
Yeah, demons are everyone's sentence.
There is this one cool part in Cormora where it's this giant gate and it's in a sealed off sector, and on the other side of that gate you just hear the banging of demons, and eventually that gate's gonna fucking break.
All right. Let's bring us back to the current day, the Era Indomitus. With the arrival of the Dathedian, as the Eldari call it, known in the Imperium as the Cicatrix Maledictum, or Great Rift, the sudden surge of warp energy caused widespread devastation within the Webway. Many arterial spars were shattered, leaving vast sections of the webway severed and isolated, abandoned by their former inhabitants. Numerous rune gates were either completely ruptured or absorbed by the insatiable chaos dimension, their passages reduced to gaping voids in reality. The calamity for those outside the webway was even more catastrophic, as the Deathedian cleaved the galaxy in two. Countless human worlds that once formed part of the expansive Imperium of Man were cast into darkness, severed from communication and travel, left to struggle in the midst of a hostile and uncharted galaxy. The Drukhari have seized this opportunity to plunge into the newly obscured regions, sending their raiding parties to target worlds previously considered impregnable bastions of humanity. From these worlds, they have captured slaves in unprecedented numbers. Each day, the Imperium dispatches more forces in a desperate bid to reclaim the lost territory, but each day, more captives are taken to suffer and die in the arenas of Cormorah. Impregnable. Yeah. I'm sure the Dark Eldar love to impregnate many fortresses.
We'll see about that. Give me a crack at it. I've been known to crack a couple things. Yo, man, I'm excited for Dadhammer. We've had a lot of feedback, and it's been kind of fun on a quick side tangent of impregnating things.
While we're on the topic.
Yeah, while we're on the topic, it seems like a lot of our audience has kind of aged with us, which obviously makes sense because we do exist in the same time as humans together. And a lot of people have kids and are very excited for Dadhammer. And yeah, I'm hyped. So stay tuned for that. But back to the show.
Gonna corrupt the next generation with Warhammer.
That's the goal. Indoctrinate them young. Between that and like, just imagine all the crazy shit I'm going to indoctrinate my children into. The earth is going to be flat. Vaccines give you wings. All types of fun stuff. No, sorry. That's Red Bull. Sorry, advertisers. Don't demonetize me again. I just misquoted. We got a great question here. Can you convince me the Eldar are better than the squats?
I think they speak for themselves.
No, I don't think you can. Matt, we got to do a Leagues of Votan episode. I love that we did our squat episode before the update because otherwise it would have been lost. And
yeah,
I don't think I'm a fan of the new stuff compared to the old stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to love if you guys go back and listen to that our old squats episode. I pitched a couple. I think we both did. We pitched a few ideas.
I
want to go back and see. Yeah, I want to see like where they went so wrong.
Daddy Hammer tip of the day. Babies are loud, small, but loud. And I think the second part of that is they can move big people. So there you go. There's some parenting advice from me.
Not yet a parent.
Now, you know, in another month, man, I'm so hyped. I can't even believe it. Anyways, it's not Dad Hammer yet, boys. It's not.
Dad Hammer yet. Okay.
I haven't proven myself yet.
Okay. All right. Among the captured are new breeds of warriors, such as the Primaris Space Marines, who provide the Drukhari spectators with fresh and varied bloodshed. Although the Deathedane inflicted tremendous damage upon the Webway, those Drukhari who survived its tumultuous emergence now revel in the suffering and chaos it has wrought across the galaxy.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what the Webway and the Warp do together, how they interact. So the Webway is a crucial tool for the Eldari, allowing them to traverse the galaxy and conduct warfare. The arterial passageways of this hyperdimensional network are sufficiently large to accommodate spacecraft, though most tunnels are only wide enough for a strike force, as we mentioned before. While the Eldari spacecraft are capable of traveling through the warp, they typically avoid it because they're more vulnerable to it than others are. Consequently, they limit their galactic travel to regions within a few light years of their Webway portals. Webway travel is relatively swift. They move through it fast. It's said that Segarak, the laughing god of the Eldari, is the only entity who knows every path, supposedly. But as we mentioned, like, who knows?
Tricks and lies.
This might explain why its disciples, the Harlequins, exhibit such an intricate understanding of its labyrinthine routes. The Harlequins navigate the Webway with ease, appearing and disappearing at will, and are often believed to possess supernatural abilities due to their mastery of its hidden paths. The Harlequins guard the Black Library alongside its Dark Guardians, using its secrets to gain an advantage in their battle against chaos. Their profound knowledge of the Webway's concealed routes enables them to outmaneuver enemies and strike from unseen angles. This expertise allows entire masks of Harlequins to position themselves for ambushes, ensuring they achieve the element of surprise, which is like since they're not huge in number, that's kind of what their main play is going to be, right?
Yeah.
The Webway is, however, not without its perils. It has become fractured and hazardous domain. But even so, this does little to assist a general who suddenly finds his forces overwhelmed from within, slaughtered by harlequins before even realizing that combat is commenced.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of just how they do stuff, man. They pop up, they mess up stuff, or they take things if you're Dark Eldar and they disappear real quick.
Take
Yeah.
things or people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and they don't need to, like, traveling through the warp is a possibility, but just think of, like, Slanesh is always coming for Eldar all the time. Like, that's that priority. And if you have a whole Chaos God that's all they want is to consume your soul, you gotta, like, you're gonna stay away from that as much as possible. So the Webway is just a necessary thing. You're not gonna try and risk the warp if you have any choice about it whatsoever. But, like,
Yeah.
since the Webway is fractured, there might be places you may need to get to, but you can't now because the Webway's been severed in that way. So you might have to risk it. But
Yeah.
you'd have to weigh that against, like, how important is it for me to get to that spot?
Yeah. I like to think of like junction points in the galaxy, like Paradise Worlds, and how many Webway portals are on that. And like, you know, there's like a field with 10 Webway portals, and each one of those goes to a different complete portion of the galaxy, you know, and just it's like this like shuttle hub of portals essentially, where you could jump off here and then end up, and because they were kind of saying that you can't do huge jumps necessarily in this, you know, a couple light years sometimes. So you almost have to do this like portal puddle jumping idea.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I
Farther you
imagine
want to
too,
go.
like, if there was like a pathway on another world, I like the idea of like, oh, I'm gonna go to like a Nexus place on a Paradise world and just like I'll pop out of this one and then have to travel around this world to another one. And
Yeah.
maybe the idea of just like all this one Paradise world has just Eldar like going in and out of it through portals.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Webway structures are up next. The Webway is best envisioned as an extension of intricate network of doorways linked fixed points in real space. Through the Webway, the Eldari can traverse vast distances more swiftly than most other spacefaring species. However, if there is no warp gate, term for the entrances and exits of the Webway, near their destination, or is it available, the warp gate is insufficiently sized to accommodate for the necessary forces, the Eldari face a significant challenge. Much of the Webway has fallen into disrepair and obscurity, with many sections either destroyed or left uncharted since the fall of the Eldari. This often necessitates connecting stops during travel, as direct routes may be unavailable. Yeah, okay, so this is kind of what we're talking about. Because the technology to construct new warp gates have been lost, interacting with gates among the Eldari's most valued artifacts. Warp gates then grant access to the labyrinth dimension, vary in scale from personal gates designed for foot traffic to massive gates capable of accommodating entire craft worlds. Due to the rarity and critical importance of warp gates, both the Asuryani and the Jakari will go to great lengths to either seize or deny their use to the enemies.
This speaks to that question from earlier too of why the Eldar don't stay in the I keep wanting to say the warp in the Webway, is that like humans are constantly expanding, other races are constantly encroaching on territory, they're getting too close to a web gate.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we got to stop this threat before it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah,
before
like this is a crucial jump gate here.
Yeah, like we need to intervene, or like we need to mess with maybe the Tyranids are on a path to that gate, so we need to deflect them onto a human world and get them away from our stuff, right? Like,
yeah, no, that's kind of a great reason. Probably, you know, that would probably be one of their primary reasons for war. Like, I don't know what else would really
be worth risking
truly be worth it. Yeah, you know, it's these artifacts that they really want, and what's the best artifact? Yeah, the Webway.
Yeah, and protecting the Webway, because like that is how you get in and out, right? So
yeah,
the alternative is if you get in the Webway and then you detonate all the warp gates and then and seal yourself in forever.
Yeah, there you go. So that gives you a pretty good understanding of like a timeline. You know, it gives you some idea of what happens when you're in it, what are structures and stuff. I was thinking about the reason why this episode came about is on the last episode, we were talking about Tyranids going in the Webway. And it was such a cool idea that I had to write a whole episode about it. We were talking about like the synapses and how, you know, you might have to link it together through the portal, and does that portal disrupt it? And what happens to a Tyranid when it goes in there?
Yeah, do they go feral? Do they?
Yeah. So it kind of got my mind racing. Well, what other interactions do we have? So I wrote down some stuff here that we'll go through.
Yeah, and I also do like exploring. Like, again, the Webway is very much entrenched with the Eldar, but it's always cool when there's crossover with other races and seeing how they might use it or how they might interact with it. So the Necron and the Dolmen Gates. Since the ancient Necrons have awakened from their aeons-long great sleep, the Catan known as Naya Drazatha, the Burning One, who has long yearned to spread his eldritch fires into the Webway and beyond, has finally enabled the Necrons to breach its boundaries by revealing how to access it. Through a network of living stone portals called Dolmen Gates, the Necrons have turned the Old One's greatest weapon against them, significantly accelerating the end of their prolonged war in heaven. Yeah, isn't the war in heaven still technically going on for them still, the Necron? Like, to them, it's not over yet? We're not done until it's done?
But, like, yeah, I suppose, like, you know, they killed off the Old Ones, and that was the true enemy.
And do we know that they're extinct? Like, do they know that they're extinct? There's all kinds of theories around.
Yeah, I would say at this point, they're just assuming that they're not. Like, they awaken to a completely different galaxy not run by the Old Ones, and there seems to be no trace. I would imagine they're like, well, I guess... Well, like this was our plan all along, I suppose. You know, like we gotta wait. We gotta wait for the galaxy to regrow humans so we can re-engage the old ones. And then they come back and they're like, "Well, there's no old ones."
But at the same time, though, like maybe they recognize the Eldar and the Orcs as being like remnants of the old ones that need to be.
Yeah, and for sure, and definitely, you know,
just a thought, just throwing thoughts.
Yeah.
There. I'm not saying
I
it's
like
the way
it.
it is. Right, as a species devoid of psychers. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking more about that, but it's fine. Maybe I'll have something later.
We'll save it for our old ones episode.
It's like when you're eating food and you go, I was just enjoying the thought.
You were savoring the thought. Yes.
Yes.
As a species devoid of psychers, the Necrons cannot traverse the warp. Without access to the Webway, they would be relegated to using slow stasis ships, isolating them within the galaxy. The Dolmen Gates do not provide the same stability or control as the natural entrances to the Webway. Curiously, the Webway detects breaches caused by Dolmen Gates and quickly attempts to seal off the compromised areas until the threat is neutralized. Thus, Necrons must reach their destination swiftly to avoid being destroyed by the network. That's cool. It's almost like a virus entering your body and like passing through your bloodstream quickly to get to the other side before it gets like hunted down by its natural defenses. Many Dolmen Gates were lost or abandoned during the Great Sleep, and others were destroyed by the Eldari. The remaining gates offer access to only a small portion of the Webway, much of which has been deliberately sealed off by the Eldari to prevent further contamination. Despite this, the Webway's immense expanse allows the Necrons to travel at speeds that far surpass those of younger species.
Interesting. I didn't realize the Necron did get in there.
But it's not like they're in there permanently. Like, it's more like they have to pass through or start a big fight and then just get lost into it. It's not like they have like free passage whenever and wherever.
But do even Necron... the Eldar have free passage anywhere and everywhere?
I would say more so. Again, with the guides of like the Farseers and stuff that actually know.
I like how you described it as a virus, where at least when like the Eldar go into the Webway, they are psychically connected to it. You know, they're one with it, communing. But so the Eldar, they do. I mean, the Necron, they do have another way of fast travel, where it's instantaneous, and they don't use this. So this Dolmen Gate idea, I think, is pretty old lore, and I don't know how far it carried on and how much technology of this really still exists too. There was that jump of Necron lore in, I think, 6th edition, where they became like full on like Tomb Kings in space, full on Egyptian vibe. Yeah. And some of their technologies jumped, some didn't.
Yeah. All right, Tyranids. They have no direct access. Tyranids cannot directly access the webway. Their biology and lack of psychic ability prevent them from interacting with it. They rely on the warp and their bioships for travel and communication. The Tyranids have hive minds. Influence extends into the warp, but not into the webway. As a result, their incursions and influence are confined to more conventional space and warp travel.
Yeah, this kind of implies that they have interacted with the warp in other galaxies that they've consumed, but not the webway, because they haven't evolved to deal with it yet.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing where we know the warp is galaxy wide, so they at one point have already evolved to deal with the warp, creating the shadow in the warp. But yeah, they haven't reached the webway yet.
Yeah,
very interesting.
And it does, I guess, confirm more or less that the hive mind doesn't penetrate into the webway. So that, again, the Tyranids, just because they can't get into it naturally, doesn't mean they can't follow a force through an open webgate portal or something. But then it looks like they just turn feral on the other side.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this kind of opens up another form of discussion too. Like, is the webway itself alive in some way? Because it's Wraithbone has some sort of living properties, does it not? Like, and
just conspiracy theories.
Well, the ships are kind of alive too, right?
Yeah.
Ships. So it could the and they're made of Wraithbone as well.
But the webway,
I would imagine you'd have to define what is alive really good in order to answer that question.
Sure. Because I guess that's a tough question.
But it pretty much could be, depending on how you want to define it. Like, it even holds on to memories and stuff, or
I just think of the idea that
programming to it, and
if part of interacting and traveling through the webway is being psychic, then that almost implies there's like a soul or spirit of the webway that exists there, and that's what you're interacting with when you travel through it. So I don't know, maybe I don't know if I've never seen anything talk about it that way, but
maybe the webway is the old
ones. Dude, it's their butthole. So Wraithbone is actually constructed of solidified crystallized warp energy. So
it's not then alive.
Yeah, so maybe it's more akin to a rock than a tree,
Interesting.
Yeah, and also when you consider, but it's also like self-healing, I believe. And also like when they animate Wraith constructs, they have to use Eldar souls to do so. Right.
Yeah.
So
okay. That makes sense. So it is like it's like an energy almost. Because if it's like condensed.
Do we say a metamaterial maybe? A metamaterial? Come on, that's pretty sciencey.
Did you just Google that? Did you just make it up? You can't just make up science facts, Mark. Yeah. As for your living comments there, Mark, too, like, you know what else can store memories? Your computer. Is that living? Yeah. So, like, is it just super advanced tech, or is it alive in its own right? And I don't think we could know. But it's an interesting thought.
A computer can be dead, so maybe a computer can be alive.
Gotcha, bitch. Yeah. Nope. James won this one. I'm back on his side of the fence.
Right. Yeah, it's just interesting, the idea that you need a psychic potential to interact with the webway, that, and that if the Tyranids don't have that, I don't know.
Yeah,
Jax has a comment here that he's talking about. Apparently, there were Tyranids fighting in the webway in the Great Devour Omnibus.
Okay. Basically, when the Eldar craft were built and were fighting Tyranids, they were utterly destroyed, and they needed to retreat through the webway. And their haste, they forgot to close the portal. Okay, so did the Tyranids make it in? This is kind of one problem with 40K. There's so much content that even though I read, it's like, well, sorry, I didn't read that book, but tell me. So a splinter part of the Splinter Fleet made it into the webway with Synapse. This is intense. We're waiting for this guy to type furiously as we're waiting for this story. Holy moly.
That's what we basically discussed before, though, is if there was a connection out of the webway, then the Tyranids would be able to maintain Synapse. That's what we said.
That was kind of what I thought.
Yeah. But then if the gate closes, what happened.
Does it
That's
sever
what,
the connection.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we want to know.
Also,
that's the interesting
the
part,
other
right?
question would be like how much of a hive fleet would you need to get in there? How many synapse creatures
To reach
Right.
that mass of synapse.
Right.
Yeah.
to make it even self-sufficient, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? Can like a whole hive fleet be cut off from
Could
the
be.
main race and still be able to function?
Sadly, an army from Eander fought and destroyed the fleet with the help of 3 Phoenix Lords, ripped to the Tyranid Hive fleet, so close to the secrets of the Webway. I'm sure they were just
Almost got
trying to
into the
rent a
Black
book.
Library.
Yeah, they just
Tyranids
wanted
can't
to
win at
read.
the end of a book. That can't be right.
No.
Fake news.
Who was there to write it then? How does anyone know what happened?
You gotcha again. All right, moving
let's
on
jump
to
into
orcs.
orcs.
Occasionally access, orcs are known to stumble into the Webway accidentally. They have occasionally used the Webway's portals or found their way into it during their rambunctious wanderings, but they do not have the capability to navigate or use it intentionally. Makes sense. Orc incursions into the Webway are generally chaotic and destructive. Their presence disrupts the Webway and can cause damage, but they do not have a strategic advantage or understanding of it. All of that seems
Shocking.
perfectly in line with how orcs function.
Like, just imagine trying to describe the Webway to an orc, and you're like, it's a labyrinth of network of tunnels, and he's just like, bonk, hits you on the head. Like,
yeah, and it's cool that they can stumble in and then just like wreck stuff and like might not even know how to get back out again. They're lost. They're in there forever. Or then they stumble out somewhere else completely randomly. Like, how the hell did we get here? Who knows? Let's start breaking stuff. So that seems fitting. All right, Tau have no direct access. They have their methods of interstellar travel involve conventional warp drives and sublight propulsions, and they do not possess the psychic or technological means to enter the Webway. The Tau are aware of the Webway, but their lack of psychic presence and understanding limits their ability to interact with or utilize it. Their focus remains on expanding their empire through conventional means, which again makes sense. Yeah. They aren't particularly psychic. They're probably never going to even be able to really use it.
Yeah, just imagine a Tau scientist trying to analyze Wraithbone, and he's like, I don't know if I should tell the Ethereal what I found. Like, there's some psychic things I can't quite describe. Like,
makes my calculator break. Like,
I always think of, like, when I think of Tau interacting with psychic things, I imagine it just being like explaining color to someone who is born colorblind. It's like you don't have the like the person receiving the information doesn't have the vocabulary to understand this thing. So it's just, I can't, well, maybe that's a bad example because maybe like shades at least are like an example, but the idea is just like trying to describe someone who just doesn't have any conception of the thing that you're
trying to describe.
Yeah. So like the Webway, how would you even like conceptualize something that your brain doesn't have a slot for, basically?
Yeah. What is psychic?
What
is that word? What is that? What are you talking about?
Hey, so then that's a fun thought. Are we currently psychic as humans because we understand the concept? Or are we just goofy, imaginative monkeys?
Well, I mean, theoretically, you're just talking about things within reference to other things you know. You're like, oh, psychic might be moving something with your mind, but like that's just an extension of something you already do, but modified slightly, right? You can still move things.
Sure.
It's just you're doing it with. So like the answer is, I would say no, you can't conceive of psychic because you're not doing it, right?
Yeah. It's like telling you to move your tail. Like, what muscles
you promise not to tell anyone about that.
Sorry, bad example. But yeah, right? Like, how can you move a limb that you don't even have a concept for? You know what tails are, you know how they work on other animals, but if I told you how does it feel to wag your tail, like, you can't.
In the comments, it's in the Farsight book, he first ran into demons. He had no idea what or how they worked. Yeah, I kind of remember that happening for sure, where it just can't compute.
What is this?
All right. Chaos. Chaos forces, including Chaos Space Marines and demons, can access the Webway through breaches and rifts. Their presence causes corruption and disruption within the Webway as the Immaterium's chaotic energies affect the network. Chaos incursions into the Webway are often aggressive and destructive, aiming to exploit or damage the Eldari domains and disrupt their efforts. Again, pretty on brand. Makes sense. It is also interesting to note that really the Eldar are the only race that really would use the Webway properly. Everyone else seems to just get in there and wreck shit. Like,
Probably.
Well, unless the Emperor had opened it up, then
but then you would also need Psychers on the same level as the Emperor that are disciplined and powerful enough to be able to be our Farseers, right? To actually use it properly.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then would it really been that much of an advantage to be able, because like you're just replacing the navigators with
Farseers.
Psychers.
I imagine though the Emperor, so like the Emperor had it going good until the seals were broken. Then that's when he had to start investing all his power into it. But through like technological arcane means, he was able to build seals and protect it to keep that kind of power draw from happening, you know.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was also, when Magnus broke it, then that's when the breaker was flicked and all the power went in, you know, and
yeah, not how breakers work, but yeah, pretty much.
I'm an electrician. Don't question me. Not a very good one, but
yeah, just flip the breaker in your house will be fine. It provides more power to your house.
More power.
Yes. No, I was gonna say too that the Emperor, like, who knows what his plans were? Like, maybe he did come up with ways to map it himself, being as powerful as he is. Maybe he'd always keep certain gates open, and like, who knows what the actual end game would have looked like for him. But just interesting. And on that note, let's talk about how the Imperium and human factions access the Webway. So generally, the Imperium knowledge of the Webway is limited and largely based on ancient texts and occasional discoveries. Attempts to use a Webway for travel or strategic purposes are rare and often result in significant challenges or failures. Webway gate attempts have been made to harness or control Webway gates or for strategic advantage, but these efforts are hampered by the complex and dangerous nature of the Webway, which is kind of cool. Like, you could, in theory, have a very stable route between, let's say, two planets that is stable, it will always work, but you try and do anything crazy and you end up screwing it all up and you end up far flung across the galaxy or who knows what.
Yeah, and it makes sense that if you try and use a path, like a fairly well-traveled path, then the Eldar are just like zooming around you and they can see, oh, he's going here, and it's very obvious and very
you open yourself
ambushed.
up. The Mechanicus has limited interaction with the Webway. The Tech Priests of Mars have limited knowledge of the interaction with the Webway. They are focused on the repair and maintenance of technology rather than exploring or utilizing the Webway. Their research efforts, while they have made some efforts to understand or access it, these are rare and often involve ancient or forbidden knowledge. Their interactions with the Webway are more about studying it rather than exploiting it. And then moving away from the Imperium, we have some minor races. So the Kroot have no direct access to the Webway. Their travel is primarily through conventional means or tower technology. They may occasionally find themselves near Webway entrances or in conflict with Eldari, but do not interact with it directly. It's also interesting to note, too, that like, they could be in conflict, say, on like a very wild world with Exodites, for example, right?
Sure.
And the Exodites here are like, oh, man, these Kroot are getting way too close to this Webway gate. We need to do something about it.
Yeah.
The Hrud. The Hrud are a mysterious and largely unknown race. They're said to have some interaction with the Webway. Their technology and capabilities are not well understood, but they are rumored to move through or influence the Webway in obscure ways. Go see.
Yeah, they have that whole like time dilation thing with them where everything around them decays at drastic speeds or whatever. So you could imagine how that would affect the Webway, and it could kind of battle off and corrode the wraith bone before it can regrow. And
and I was just going to mention before I go through the rest of these minor species that there's tons of other minor species that may have some way of traveling again through those like stable routes, or like a ton of them end up in Cormorra somehow, right?
Even just accident, man. Like, there has to be a planet out there that has no idea that they have the Webway portal in their backyard. They've just been using it to deliver groceries to their moon.
Yeah, exactly. Like the simple.
Yeah.
All right, the Jokero, known as monkey techs, the Jokero are a technologically advanced and enigmatic race. While they are known for their bizarre and advanced technology, there is no evidence that they have any interaction with the Webway. Their focus remains on their own technological pursuits. Is there anything about Jakaro and psychic energy? Are they pro, against? Do they have any psychic presence? Are they highly psychic?
I don't think they do. Let's maybe look at that.
Okay. While you look that up, I will go on to the Yurmagul gene stealers. These Tyranid organisms have a mysterious connection to the Webway. They are known to emerge from the Webway to attack, suggesting some form of limited access or ability to navigate it. Their exact methods and extent of interaction are not well understood. So that's interesting. So again, going back to the Tyranids, there's a specific breed of gene stealer, the Yurmagul gene stealers, that seem to be adapting to the Webway. So that could be the beginnings of how
Interesting.
the hive mind is learning.
Yeah, and I do like that idea because that just means that like wherever they came from, they interacted with the warp. But this is the first time they interact with the Webway.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, just a little clue into the backstory of
where the Tyranids are coming
where
from.
they came from and what they've encountered before.
And how they are starting to slowly potentially develop a way into
that's
the Webway.
very cool.
Did you find anything on your fact check there, Mark?
No, I did a quick Control F on some pages, and I didn't find anything Jakaro and psychic. So
we'll have to wait till our Jakaro exclusive episode.
Yeah.
Only
Monkeys in a
accessible through our
barrel.
Patreon. Yeah, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about some of the mysteries and unknowns in the Webway. So we've talked about the uncharted regions. These are unknown territories where much of the Webway remains unexplored, with vast stretches that are uncharted or shrouded in mystery. These regions may contain ancient Eldari relics, hidden dangers, or entirely new threats that have yet to be discovered. Lost or hidden gates. So we talked about the gates at Gamora. Well, some of the warp gates have been lost or sealed off for millennia. Their locations forgotten or hidden by the Eldari. The discovery of or rediscovery of these gates could have profound implications for the galaxy's political and strategic landscape. Like, think if they found a web gate, I don't know, on some tomb world, or if they found one on the Tau home world or something, like it just would mean like, oh, now the Eldar can just strike right in there.
Yeah.
So the Webway's fate, it's potentially going to be destroyed. Its stability is precarious. It has ongoing threats from external forces and internal decay. Speculations about its potential destruction or transformation raise concerns about the Eldari's future and the impact on their ability to navigate the galaxy. In the future, as the galaxy evolves, the Webway's role may shift. Potential developments include increased breaches by other races, changes in its architecture, or new discoveries that could alter its function and importance. So the uniqueness of the Webway. It was constructed by an ancient civilization.
Before we go to that one. Yeah, I really like that concept of like, this is not the Eldars. Like in the future of 40K, like, is this the battlefield that's most important, the Webway, and who's going to claim it? Which race is going to actually, it's not the Eldars.
Or alternatively, it turns into a grinding battlefield of all the races are vying for control, and it's like, influence keeps changing hands and all that.
Just a new place.
That would be a super interesting way to introduce, like if they were to introduce a new faction and it was just one that conquered the Webway from the Eldar. And like they could only, like the Dark Eldar could hold on to Gamora or some other stuff.
Yeah, like it could be almost like a race that was sealed off in the Webway and had to survive. And it gets unsealed, and all of a sudden this new masters of the Webway get kind of unleashed or whatever on the galaxy. And since they've been in there, they've been building an empire for, infinite amount of time, essentially, to them. And then it gets unleashed, reconnected to the rest of the galaxy.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
That is sick. That would be an awesome introduction of a new race.
And it would be impactful too, because then the Eldar are like, the thing that makes us better than everyone else, we no longer have.
Yeah.
Or at least don't have exclusive control.
Yeah. Or at least more dangerous for us. Like it would shift the balance of things in an interesting way. Instead of just like showing up on the scene, it actually makes an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sick. I like that.
Cool.
That's going to be Warhammer 15th edition.
15th edition. Prediction called right here.
Yeah. And barring that, it's just, the second Magic the Gathering deck, Webway edition. Whatever.
We're going to make our own Warhammer now.
Cool. The uniqueness of the Webway, it's constructed by an ancient civilization. The Webway is a vast labyrinth network of tunnels that exists outside of the material universe and the warp. It was created by the ancient and highly advanced Eldar civilization long before the rise of humanity. And by that, I mean like the one that created the Eldar. Unlike warp travel, which involves traversing the dangerous and chaotic realm of the warp, the Webway is stable and safer means of traveling. It escapes the warp's perils. You don't have to worry about chaos as much, obviously, as we discussed. And its strategic importance is obvious. The instantaneous transfer of material or manpower to wherever you need it to be. It leads to a lot of conflict over who's going to control it, as we're talking about. It also has the Black Library in its center. The Webway is home to two of the most mysterious and powerful locations in the 40k universe: the Black Library, with all of its knowledge around chaos, and the Drukhari Empire, where centered around Gamora. These locations make the Webway not just a transportation network, but a realm of deep secrets and untold dangers. Like, who knows what's in there? Like I said, a whole race of species could be in there just waiting to be unleashed. And why should you care? The narrative depth and mystique of the Webway is a key element and rich part of the lore of 40k. It offers endless narrative possibilities and connects ancient history with present conflicts and provides a link between the mortal realm and otherworldly. It's like this. It's a little bit of a nexus where things can happen outside of the warp and material universe. And it has a huge impact on major factions. The Webway is central to the stories of the Eldar and who rely on it for survival, and the Imperium, which is always been trying to exploit it. It also plays a significant role in the overarching conflict between the forces of order and the forces of chaos. And it shows the epic scale of 40k. The Webway emphasizes the epic scale of 40k universe. It's a testament to the grandeur and the tragedy of the Eldar civilization, and a reminder of the ancient and almost incomprehensible history that underpins the galaxy's current state of decay and war. I like that element in that it also is like the Blackstone fortresses are also an element of that. It's like the things that exist currently are not the only parts of the 40k universe. There's stuff out there that isn't even talked about, basically. And it's floating around there. Who knows what these things are, how long they've been hanging around. And they have crazy tech that is even more advanced than basically anything else in the universe. There's so much depth, and the Webway is a good example of that. It's like this thing that is so old that a race that's 60 million years old is been using it this whole time, but even they didn't make it. So I think that's a perfect example. It's like the scale of 40k's lore is so huge and so deep, and so like I like that it's unknown too. Like, not everything in lore needs to have an answer, and it makes it feel like a real world when it doesn't, because I can't learn everything about the real world, but potentially you can learn everything about a fantasy world. There's enough Lord of the Rings lore that you could learn it all. But there's not enough. If you keep expanding the 40k lore, there's a good chance you couldn't know it all, and that's a cool part of it.
Yeah.
Well,
especially when they write these sweet little.
I'm doing real world lore. We're just gonna go through Wikipedia articles until we know everything.
God.
The lore
start an
podcast.
Alphabetical, or how do you plan to organize this?
The random page button, actually.
Oh, God. Perfect. Sweet. Yeah. Well, you have my blessings naturally. You're not welcome back on the show anytime, but be free, my son. Yeah, no, the Webway is so cool, man. Like it's that kind of second thing that I think really doesn't quite get looked at enough, but truly makes 40k, where it's like, obviously we got the warp and this magic system, but then you have like this secret other warp essentially, and this whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does serve as such like a through line and linchpin across like all the key moments of 40k, right? Like we keep going back to the Emperor and the Golden Throne and the Eldar and the War in Heaven, like these key timeless events that are all affected by the same thing.
Totally.
Yeah. Very cool.
One other element about the Webway is it's a gateway to the unknown. Because of the Webway's like intrinsic nature and its unexplored, because of how much of it is unexplored. The paths represent the unknown and the potential for discovery in the 40k universe. For those who enjoy the mystery and danger and wonder of 40k, the Webway symbolizes all those aspects, making an element that resonates deeply with fans. I think that it's the same thing as a Blackstone Fortress. It's like, who knows what's in there?
Yeah. I think this will be like a cool unofficial little hobby prompt for listener lore. Write me like something. Write me what you think's in the Webway. Write me something cool, unique, and we'll share it on listener lore. Because yeah, it'd be very cool to see what other people can kind of come up with. It's crazy that Warlords of Terror event. I think we have like 20 submissions, maybe somewhere in there. So that's pretty cool. That's a whole deck
right there.
Well, that's kind of the Webway and how it works, what it kind of does. I have my trivia time thing here. A couple hours before the episode on Discord, somebody reached out and said, hey, check out the Tul'chula engine. Tul'chula engine. So this is an ancient enigma. Deep within the veils of time, the Tul'chula engine whispers of ancient and unfathomable power, born from the old ones and shrouded in arcane mystery. It is one of the triad of dark entities, alongside the Ouroboros and the Plague Card, whose combined might can tear asunder the very fabric of reality. Master of Warp. Alone, the Tul'chula engine commands a warp with precision that borders on the supernatural. It jumps through the immaterium, are executed with the efficiency that seems almost otherworldly, as though guided by forces beyond mortal comprehension. The history of this, honestly, the history of this, maybe we'll skip over. You know, there's a lot of names here, and it might not be crucial to what this device is. I'll give you the summary, but basically, it was discovered in the Horus Heresy by some characters, by some Primarchs, and it got put onto the Dark Angels, like, home world, and it kind of got put into this machine as like a world engine type thing, as a computer program. When the planet blew up, the rock became a thing, and it now the way it jumps through the warp is this Tul'chula engine. During the Arcs of Omen, they fight back and forth over it, and it eventually gets taken by Vashtar and put onto his ship or whatever. And he has the other two Plague Hearts or whatever the fuck they've called. It's this whole kind of thing, and the story of it, like, we could get lost in the weeds of it, but let's kind of talk about conceptually what it is. The similarities. So basically, the way I was kind of getting it described to me when I was reading was it's a boring device through the warp. So it can create warp tunnels, essentially, very much like the Webway, but it's not quite the Webway, but it's Webway 2.0. It could be. The thing is,
and they lost it.
The thing is very unstable, and I don't think the full intent, by the sounds of it, was like what it could be. I think he had other plans for it, and he kind of found, oh, it could be used for this as well. You got to read the whole thing. I didn't want to get into it because I just found out about it. But a couple other things about it is, yes, I think it's separate than the Webway. It's very similar in concept where it bores that hole. But the Tul'chula engine, and this is on interdimensional pathways, are designed to create rifts and to bridge the gaps between space and time, allowing for access to distant or hidden realms that can open portals or tunnels that connect different dimensions or realities. So the Webway is a complex network of tunnels existing between real space and the warp, allowing for near instantaneous travel across the galaxy without directly entering dangerous warp space. So one is an actual, like, different dimension, it sounds like, and one is like a midway, like you're still in real space and the warp. It's a midway point, where the other one is almost like a Necron pocket dimension, you know?
Interesting.
The arcane and mysterious origins. The Tul'chula engine originates from the old ones and is imbued with ancient enigmatic powers that reflects a deep and cryptic understanding of reality and its underlying mechanics. While the Webway was also created by the old ones, but the Webway is a relic of ancient and mysterious technology that transcends conventional understanding, representing advanced but obscure form of transportation and protection. So yeah, they kind of operate a little bit differently too. Like, Yeah, the old, it makes it neat because the old ones made both these two things. And then they decided to, I think, go with the Webway concept over this thing. And they only made 3 of them.
Alternatively, what if it's like the boring machine to create things like the Webway? And because you're only using like one part of it, you don't know how to like support that tunnel. It obviously is not as stable as like if the old ones are using it to repair and build onto the Webway.
Yeah,
So, like,
and that's a good point. Yeah. But
yeah,
it sounds like it creates a different dimension. It sounds like this is way more like warpy than it is like if I
Webway.
read through what I wrote about the history and stuff, but when I was reading, it was just so many names and convoluted. But it kind of talked a little bit about how like unpredictable and dangerous this was, and ripping a hole. Words like that were used a lot, you know.
Sure,
So
but if you
but
use a drill and don't know what you're doing with it, it describes all those things. You can use it to build a
Sure.
house, but you can also use it to like unpredictably tear holes in walls, right? Like you don't know how to use it properly. Again, like what if you found one of those big boring machines that they use to build the tunnel, but you're not an engineer, so you don't know how to like support the tunnel and make it so that it's stable. So like, yeah, you're drilling a hole and just ramming your way through stuff, but then the tunnel's like collapsing behind you because you didn't support it properly, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah, you needed that. You needed 2 machines and you only had the one. Yeah, yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay. And like again, you need the knowledge of like an engineer on how to properly support the Webway and how to build it and how to like construct it permanently versus just tearing a hole and just passing through.
Yeah. They manipulate reality slightly different. Capable of the engine, the Tul'chula engine is capable of altering the fabric of space and time. It can open breaches that disrupt conventional boundaries and allow for the crossing of dimensional limits. While the Webway functions as a realm that bypasses the warp, manipulating space in a way that shields its user from the chaotic energy of the immaterial and allowing for travel through a stable and controlled dimension. So I keep thinking like it's such similar technology, but they keep saying like dimensions, you know, and these words mean something different than the warp and realms, and like the Webway is a shield as opposed to punching a hole in another dimension. It's still, you're still in real space.
I'm not an expert in interdimensional.
I feel like I'd have to dive in specifically into that to like see is this a different thing, because I think that's relatively new lore too, right? So
it came out in the Arcs of Omen book. Yeah, with Vashtar. This was his big whole thing, Vashtar's gimmick. There are some differences between the two. The engine is primarily used to create breaches and rifts that can alter space-time, enabling access to distant realms or dimensions. It can manipulate reality in focused manner, potentially causing significant disruptions. The Webway functions as a stable alternative dimension that, well, so now that's a dimension too. But, you know, it could have just been me writing words on a page by myself.
Yeah, I mean, words like dimensions and like realms like could be pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. Allows for rapid travel between real space locations while avoiding the warp's chaotic influence. Its primary purpose is to provide a safe and efficient means of travel and communication. The nature of interaction. The engine acts as a singular potent device that can directly manipulate or that can be directly manipulated or controlled. It can also be used to create specific breaches or rifts according to its needs or goals of its wielder. The Webway, a vast pre-existing network that operates independently of direct control of most users. While it can be accessed and navigated, it's not typically manipulated in the same way as the engine. But like you said, like 60 million years ago, the Webway, somebody had to make it. Like,
yeah, the old one.
So yeah, now it's established, but 60 million years ago, they had to make those tunnels. So
right, exactly. Again, like I just go back to like supporting it and all the infrastructure that goes into it to make it not an unstable pathway.
The stability and risks. The Tul'chula engine, it uses high risks as it can destabilize reality and it can cause catastrophic breaches if not handled properly. It represents a direct threat to the fabric of space-time. While the Webway, generally stable and well protected, though it can still be vulnerable to corruption or damage, the primary risk is related to breaches or incursions from the warp rather than the Webway itself being inherently unstable. So, you know, the webway is stable. It's things that it's the pressure on the outside that causes it to not be. Where this other thing is just unstable all around. But cool early concept tech, and the fact that the old ones made it, and like, yeah, they just describe it like this cool, boring drill through dimensions.
Yeah. Well, the reason I keep going into tunnels into just not just the webway thing, but like Tul'chula is an Etruscan god of the underworld. Or he's like associated with the underworld. So like underworld tunneling is all kind of like thematically.
Sure. Well,
At
isn't
least
that
it's
an
like my-
obscured reference you can pull out? Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
we kept him around for a reason.
Yep.
You guys don't worship the
For
Etruscan? Am I the only one?
Someone's got to keep
Am
up
I
the
the only
traditions.
one?
The old religions, the old ways.
Oh man. Well, good luck on that, my friend. You can have it, I think. So that's pretty much the end of the episode. We're getting to the end of it. I got a closing thought. You know, if the warp is an ocean with ships battling its violent, ever-shifting currents, then the webway is a submerged ancient tunnel carved into the darkness. Within its confines, you're shielded from the warp's relentless chaos, moving through a path that remains stable and unchanging. Unlike the treacherous surface where the ships were at the mercy of every storm, and the Astronomicon, it's a solitary lighthouse piercing the abyss, guiding the lost through a sea of nightmares. But that's all just crazy seaman talk, so don't put too much thought into it. My other takeaway is this, and I feel like this is 40K as a whole. I love no matter what rock you look under in 40K, there's always something crazy and interesting happening. For example, under this rock was a webway portal, and it led to Cormora. So that's neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything, like the way you describe it. Like that's where my mind goes again, to that tunneling, and like it's like shielded from the ocean, but like maybe there's leaks that can spring, or like the pressure is constantly on it from the ocean above, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty good description, and like you said, like just again that depth, the 40K, that you just like uncover new secrets, and like even now we're learning stuff that, you know, we've been in the hobby for 20 plus years, and there's still stuff you've never heard of before. And someone's like,
it's crazy to think that
out.
The collective knowledge is probably 50 years between the three of us if we combined all our.
Well, James is a little bit of a half knowledge, but
hey,
yeah,
I'm
we
reading
make up
books
for it.
all the time, dude. I'm catching up.
Oh,
Yeah,
look at you and your big brain and your
That's
knowledge.
That's right. I'm collecting. I got my own black library going. Okay. So yeah, for me, I picture it slightly different than like an underwater tunnel. I think of it more of like, I kind of picture it more as like a Blackstone fortress is how my mind goes. It's like, yeah, there's ways through, and if you know how to navigate it, then you can get where you want to go. And there's crazy mysteries, crazy treasures. There's lots of stuff in there, but it's also dangerous because there's stuff waiting to kill you all over the place.
How is that different than a tunnel?
Well, because a tunnel,
all those things can be true of a tunnel.
Yeah, but like you're
multiple
when I think of a
tunnels.
tunnel, I think of like it's going from point A to point B, whereas this is more of like a network, and it's something to wade through, to explore.
A network of tunnels, caverns, if you will.
All right, whatever.
Caverns, if you will, with all kinds of dangers and looming threats within.
Yeah. So like I said, it's a cool place to hang out, cool place to have stories. There's so much you can do with it, and like you said, there's a lot happening in anywhere in this place.
Yeah. I think there are some like native like creatures in the webway too, like flora and fauna too, that have kind of snuck in their way in or somehow psychically manifested. Like there's some type of, I forget its name, but it's like a psi wasp that like inhabits the webway. So like, yeah, even if you're not dealing with the waterway leaks and stuff, there are still like actual other entities and stuff in there looking for you.
Natural dangers. Yeah. I'm hyper fixating on your like new race potential.
Isn't that a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
hate to
I
draw
just-
parallels with Halo, but Halo is kind of doing it. I'm not
did
even
it.
done. Yeah, but I mean, 40K stuff has always existed first, and then like
Yeah, they came up with all their ideas first.
at the very conception, at the very beginning.
Yep, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, there was 40K, and God said it was good.
Oh, you do read the Chthonic text. You are an Etruscan follower.
Yes, sir. I was just testing you.
Oh,
See if I could catch you slipping. Yeah, man. Well, that was a fun episode. I learned a lot about the Webway, and I kind of got some new cool imageries in my mind. And yeah, definitely I want to play around with and see what other people could come up with. What's hiding in the warp? Do you have a cool minor Xenos that could come out and maybe conquer the galaxy? What's up with that?
yeah, or
Make it
even minor
happen.
threats, like James was saying, a species or something hidden, like
Yeah.
a natural threat or predator or something.
Well, and if you were to make it in the warp, I'd want it to be thematically tied to that. Like not just, oh, this is the thing that's in the, or not the warp, sorry, in the Webway. I'd want it to kind of feel like it had a narrative tie to why it was there and what it was doing in there and why it's there and not somewhere else. And that should have a theme tied to its physicality. So if it did make a new race of models, what would they look like, and how would the fact that they lived in the Webway shape their physical form? That's kind of what I would want to lean into. Are they like more elemental, and so like some sort of spirit thing where they're all different? Yeah, smokes.
Like if the
almost?
Webway is like this like chaotic nature where gravity isn't quite right, and like you picture Cormoran, the buildings from every way, like the people must kind of inhabit that same shifting nature or like unnatural nature. Yeah, you really lean into that.
What if they did like almost geometric shapes of things, like in weird angles, so that if you look at it from a certain perspective, it looks like one thing, and then
They're gonna be hell of models to create.
I don't know. I'm just thinking like what
they
even if
constantly
it
shift
wasn't
depending
models,
on the angle.
even if it wasn't models, just the idea of like what would a Xenos that lived in there look like?
Yeah,
That's cool.
very cool. We're gonna do some call-ins here. We got one kind of queued up, and if there's anyone else, we like to do maybe another one. If you guys have a question, want to say something, doesn't have to be about this episode. If you want to talk about your minis for a hot minute or just whatever, you're welcome to come on. I think up first we have Jax, and there we go. Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome back. I think you've been on before.
Well, hey, how's it going?
Man,
He's
my
back.
brain is
Sorry, my mic's so
full.
low. How's it going, everybody? Good to be back. Yeah.
What you want?
I kind of wanted to expand on the Tyranids and the Webway thing I was talking about in the chat.
Yeah,
Perfect.
So basically, in the book, it was Tyranids. They were invading Craft World and Maiden World, and Beal-Tan and Iandin teamed up to take it out. Beal-Tan came in too quickly, got destroyed by the Tyranids, and kind of just left through the Webway. And in their haste, they forgot to, close the Webway portal, which was kind of dumb of them.
I've let the dog out before.
Pretty typical. Yeah.
But yeah, through that, the Tyranids were actually able to enter the Webway. And it was like a small fleet. Like the hive mind was cautious and stuff. Like it wasn't too like full force. But yeah, they actually sent like a small group of Tyranids through the Webway, and they had synapse, which was kind of important. But yeah, through that, they met the Iandid army that was coming to the planet, and they were destroyed by that and like 6 other Phoenix Lords. Yeah, that's basically it summarized. Any thoughts?
I think that's basically what we said, right? Because like when we originally, when we talked about it originally, the idea would be, conceptually we all agree. If a Tyranid goes through a gate, and then the gate is maintained open, I would expect that synapse would carry. But if the gate closes, what happens to them? That's the real question that I don't know if we have an answer to.
Yeah, and we probably never will. Classic GW.
From that book
Anyway,
you read, sorry,
go
I just
ahead,
had a
never mind.
question for you. Do they take the Tyrannid POV, or how do they describe the Tyrannid side of the story? Is it all through the eyes of the Eldar?
Yeah, it's pretty much all through the eyes of the Eldar, but it's I don't know, kind of it never switches, but it's always like constantly like on the Tyranids as well. Like we get a few POVs from the Eldar just on their craft world, but it's always action. It's just a pure action book basically. And basically in the Webway when the battle happened, the craft worlders, I think the main Farseer guy was named Take or Tech or something. He warned the rest of the Iandid army to not shoot the Tyranids because doing so, if you miss, it would hit the webway and make a hole or something like that. But yeah, it was like this
Interesting.
super cool like battle. Like they had to be purely melee. Like the Wraith Guard and stuff had to like do like all the fighting and stuff, and the Wraith Knights were like sitting in the back, like they were the last line of defense. And then at like the last moment, like Avengers Endgame portal style, 6 Phoenix Lords show up and they just destroy the Tyranids.
That'll happen. That is a cool concept of a fit fire prism shoots off randomly and then boom hits the sidewall and all of a sudden warp energy just bursts in and demons are now everywhere.
Yeah.
I thought that's how you deal with Tyranids, is you let the demons kill them.
No, you
Thought
use
we
orcs
established
as we
that.
learned from the Octarius War.
Oh yeah, right.
Right.
Pull
Yeah, cool.
trigger
Thank you for
there.
sharing that a little bit. We got one other call in there.
Hey,
Any
Jax, we
quick
got another
thoughts,
2
Jax,
hours.
or-
You just want to break out the book and read it?
Yeah.
For word?
Hold on. Wait, let me find the page.
Oh no,
Page
we're gonna
doing
get
it.
slapped
He's
for
doing it.
copyright. We can't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
All right.
Thanks-
Pleasure to be
thanks.
on.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for
have a
joining
good one.
us.
So yep.
See ya.
All right. So ban that guy from studio. Perfect. Now we add this guy to the stage. Hey,
Hey,
how's
guys.
it going?
Can you hear
Don't
me?
worry. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
Don't worry,
brilliant.
your ban is incoming too.
Nice. So yeah, I want to make a jump from lore to tabletop with you guys real quick, if you allow.
Yeah.
What would be your idea, since you are a creative bunch, about some kind of scenario or game mode or mod about battles in the Webway for the tabletop?
So Christian had this idea, so I'm going to preface that and maybe fire it off to him about how underwater naval battles would kind of play out, and a similar concept would work if you want to take it from there.
Sure, yeah.
I recall you guys talking about 3D maps. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have like different layers built up that you're playing on, like 3 dimensions, so you can move up and down, and of course the typical like lateral moves you can make. I don't know if that would necessarily fit with the Webway. Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I just picture it like you literally do. Have you ever seen when they take an anthill and pour aluminum in it, and then you have that network? You pretty much have that you would be playing inside of. So you kind of have all this twisted passageway, and then of course you can always come up with like house rules where, psychic powers are amplified or misfires on a one blow a hole in the wall or whatever kind of cool stuff you want to come up with for tabletop.
Spawn a couple of demons.
That would be cool to incorporate kind of what we heard from Jax too, about the idea that like gunfire can cause the Webway to burst as well. And I imagine you could incorporate a lot of the boarding action rules too, because like some of the Webway is bigger or smaller than other parts, so you probably won't have necessarily with ships, because the more common pathways are going to be like
Human size,
squad sized. So I imagine incorporating boarding action rules would work in that too.
That sounds brilliant.
Now,
I have another idea now that I think of it. There is a playing group here in Switzerland where I live. They have a great room, a whole basement with a lot of space, and their playing tables are mobile, so they are on little rolls, and you could basically take those different tables and get them a bit closer to each other, and then designate certain entry points to the other playing field, which would create another field of depth to the strategy and to the tactics, because you need to hold choke points and whatnot and perform rituals and all that shit.
You can open and close portals. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I think if you would do that too, you'd want to like break out the 4x8 game board or whatever it is into sections.
Mhm.
So like you can actually really jump, and then that warp jump really is like, this table has 6 different sections, and this gate will lead to 3 of them, and also lead over to that table on the far side over there. So yeah, I think that could be really cool, as long as it's not just like 2 tables that you're jumping between. It wouldn't be that tactical, you know.
Yeah, but you could also go full kitchen hammer on it and just I don't know, use the space in the room you're at.
Kitchen
Yeah,
table on the
man.
floor, on a counter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's some terrain on the sink, and mom's getting losing her shit and whatnot.
Glue little magnets underneath your guy's base, so now you're like sticking them to doors.
All my guys
and
are
stuff.
magnetized. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's sweet. So you're playing in like a dimension where gravity pulls you in. Yeah, that's sweet.
That would be
I like
awesome.
it.
Okay, guys, this is gold. If we had actual claim and access to the IP of GW, we'd make a fortune right now. I can smell it.
Yeah, don't worry.
I believe
Don't worry. One nerd at a time. I'm building my army, and we will march on them one day.
Awesome. Count
And
me
it
in.
will become my company. And I will lead it into a bright and glorious new age of Warhammer, even the golden age of Terra won't recognize.
Nice.
But first, we need a bunch of angry nerds.
Sweet,
Step
sweet.
1.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you for having me. That was a great show, and have a nice evening or morning or whenever it is.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's really fun.
See ya.
Well, we did it again, boys. We had a good time. Some friends were made, some laughs were had, but
Some
at the end of the
bands were-
day, it's coming to an end, as all good things do. Do you guys have any shout outs you want to do?
I want to shout out our patrons if I can, if you'll allow me, Marcus.
I will allow.
All right. So this week we only got a few. So if we can get those numbers up, let's grow our army. Let's buy some more lore bonds to create the army that Mark dreams of. So thank you to Nathan, the Aviator 312, Eric, and Kevin for joining the ranks of Warhammer.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Like we have had huge support since we've come back. And seriously, if you've made it this far in an episode, and I've said that before, just throw us a buck. I just always imagine if everyone who listened threw us a buck, man, you would change the 3 of our lives completely. And in return, then we would just make Lorehammer for you. Yeah, you would hook. I would fully become Servitor M8RK. Hook me into the computer. I'm good to go. But first, I got to make sure my wife, Christian's wife, and James' wife and kids are all fed, you know.
Before we plug our mind into the
Patreon.
computer.
Yeah, exactly. Good times, everyone. If you want, go check out Gothic Garnish on Instagram. He's the guy who's going to be doing our magic cards. You call it AI art, but I call you dumb and ignorant. Like that guy's talented. I don't care what anyone says. And I can't wait to get a deck my own. Like he made my card already, and I'm 10 out of 10. Classic card. Classic. Also, I'm doing Lorehammer Listen to Lore still. Me and Gerald bang off one. We just did one the other day, and it was a pretty cool story about Harlequins and poetry and Segarak. Kind of ties in, so maybe go check that out. Star Lores?
Yeah, if you guys like my content and what I do and you're interested in the Star Wars universe, you can check us out and hear Jordan's voice. I do have access to him, surprisingly.
Well, you're in the same Webway together.
Yeah, but just his voice. I don't have his physical form yet.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we do our Star Lores podcast. So check us out. We're on all the major podcasting platforms, Spotify.
Yo, you've been doing that a long time. Like, how many episodes are you at?
We're almost at 100. So almost as long as
Cool.
Lorehammer was before it went on hiatus.
Yeah, man.
We try to release bi-weekly, so it's 2 a month people are getting. So yeah,
Well-
we're slowly growing. It's not Star Wars is a lot more, especially lately, contentious in the fan base. Let's say.
Yeah, it's a hostile work environment over at Star Wars for sure.
Yeah, especially between me and Jordan, we take opposite
Yeah.
sides. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, check us out there. Would love to see you guys on both, listening to both.
Yeah, and if you have, if you give me a moment here, I have a James complaints, and if you want to also send me one, actually it was pretty light this week, so you guys must love everything I do and everything I say. So thanks for that. Every day I don't get a complaint. I assume it's because you love me.
That's because they hopped on that fucking AI art post.
They all got
morning.
distracted.
Literally,
Didn't
man,
have time.
Yeah.
Okay, here, I got a quick one for you. James, I'm so lost for words that I cannot begin this email in the formal way. I already broke the first rule by starting the first sentence with I. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I'm a 29-year-old Warhammer enthusiast from the Netherlands. Warhammer has brought meaning to my life, and yet you seek to destroy that meaning. You may not realize it, so I have made a list of the things that need clearing up. There's a distinct lack of Imperial Knight lore on the podcast. Also, no Titan lore. These two types of glorious titanic war engines of the Imperium deserve mention and praise. These first 2 points lead into my third, the bullying and belittlement of Mark, Emperor protect his soul. The blatant refusal to have him talk about these magnificent war machines of the God Emperor is nothing short of pestering by the other people on the podcast, and I won't stand for it. There are only scant mentions of the most loyal son of the Emperor, Lionel Johnson, or his Legion chapter, the Dark Angels. They are deserving of more praise.
Even this episode, I skipped over a huge plot point with him. The fucking...
This one is important, and I'll leave it to you to figure out how to fix it. Canada is too far away from the Netherlands. How am I able to befriend the hosts and guests of this podcast when I can't be around? Luckily for you, the UK is leaving the EU, so a position is opened up for a new country, and the UK was fairly close, geographically speaking, to the Netherlands. Just a friendly tip. I have caught up with all the Warhammer content and have nothing else to listen to. A hole in my soul needs filling, and the only soothing voices of Mark and Eric can do so. Well, too bad for you. I hold you accountable for this lack of content and insist that you make sure that enough content will be uploaded hastily. I hope that my demands will be met and that you will show personal growth and maturity to fix all these issues.
No, I'm all about personal growth and maturity, you know? It's sad. I did the Imperial Knight episode dirty where we lost pretty much half the episode, so I am happy that we do get to technically dive back into them. You know, I can't do a lot for a lot of things for you, but I can tell you this. We will talk about the giant, glorious robots of the Machine God. But until then, go listen to House Aerokiss lore.
Yeah. As for your comment on Canada and the EU, we can invest in a channel from Canada to the Netherlands.
Yes, we can.
Just support us on Patreon, so we can buy a massive drill.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think we got all the plans in order there. We're selling dice so we can fund a channel.
From Canada to the Netherlands.
Let's do
specifically.
Oh, man. Sweet. Right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on the show, and we'll see you all on the next episode. It's going to be about Azbadul Vect, so we're keeping with the Dark Eldar theme and Cormora, and it should be a good episode. So can't wait to see you guys there next Friday. Adios.
See you guys.